My apologies. We're going to start again. So today we're going to talk about Kazakhstan, and the spirit and intent of today's discussion is to aim for being at a cultural center to understand everything about Kazakhstan that would encompass history and culture, as well as the current political situation in Kazakhstan. Before I had an interruption in the audio feed, I was mentioning that this idea was first discussed back in February of this year. And because of the pandemic, this was put on hold. But fortunately, I was able to get in touch with Ghani during the pandemic. And during his busy time, he was able to take time to give us the presentation on Kazakhstan. So before I turn it over to Ghani, I just want to introduce you to him. Ghani is a Kazakh American activist, and he is leader of Free Kazakh, which is an organization campaigning for freedom, democracy, and sovereignty. And most importantly, it is trying to bring awareness against interference in Kazakhstan. So before I turn it over to Ghani, one thing I want to do is play an excerpt of the Kazakh national anthem. And why are we doing that? Because to me, a nice window into understanding everything culturally and politically about a country is to get a glimpse of their national anthem in their native language. So if you will just bear with me, we're just going to play just a few minutes of the Kazakh national anthem, and I will turn it over to Ghani. Okay, folks. before I turn it over to Ghani, I just want to explain today's format. We were able to break this discussion up into three parts. The heart of it is really the current situation in Kazakhstan politically, but we do want to look at the history of Kazakhstan. So the first part will be just a very brief far history of Kazakhstan that spans several centuries. Obviously, because of the time limits, we don't have time to get into all the nuances of history of Kazakhstan. But I think it is interesting to kind of at least appreciate the rich cultural history of Kazakhstan. So that's part one. And then we'll take a break. And if you have any questions up to that point, Ghani will answer your questions. And then the second part will be the Soviet and Russian influence. And that will be during the Russian Empire, as well as 20th century in Kazakhstan, as it relates to how it was part of the Soviet Union. And we'll take a pause at that point at the end of part two and take more questions. And then part three is really the heart of today's discussion, which is to talk about the political climate of Kazakhstan. And most importantly, what are some of the reforms that are needed to improve the political situation in Kazakhstan? So with that being said, before I turn it over, I always do want to ask people about their personal ideology. So in the interest of full disclosure, Ghani, if you were to put yourself in like a left versus right spectrum, how would you characterize yourself?
Hello, everyone. Hello, Thomas. First of all, I would like to say thanks so much, Thomas, to you, because you organized this event. I think it's very fascinating. Thank you so much for having me here. Also, I would like to say, everyone, thanks so much for joining this online conference. So for first question, I would answer that probably I'm more towards liberal, or maybe also moderate, so somewhere between these two different sections. And should I start now?
Yes, please.
Okay, so I remember when I came to US in back 2015, and when people ask me where I came from, I said I'm from Kazakhstan. Many people in America, they don't know what is Kazakhstan. I remember some Americans said, is it somewhere in Africa? Some people said, is it like in Sahara Desert, etc. So I got so many different answers. And some people, they say, when I say Kazakhstan, some people say about the movie, which I think is very humiliating all Kazakh nation, because that movie doesn't have any connection to Kazakh culture or Kazakhstan at all. And it wasn't shot, the movie in Kazakhstan was actually in Eastern Europe. So when people ask about Kazakhstan, I trying to be very broad, and I say Kazakhstan is located between Europe and Central Asia. So being very specific, 10% is located in Eastern Europe and 90% is located in Central Asia. Also, I very often say that Kazakhs is like Mongols mixed with Eastern European people, and little bit they have Arabian blood as well. So I would say very broad description of Kazakh people. So if to give you more specific details, I would say that Kazakhstan is the 9th largest country in the world, is indeed the largest landlocked country in the world. And it has the longest like sharing border in the world with Russia. I think it's like 7,000 square kilometers. So also the Kazakhstan's size is over 1 million square miles. Population is between 18 to 19 millions. Different sources say it's different. Capital city of Kazakhstan is Astana. Just last year, it's actually changed its name to the name of our dictator, Nur Sultan. And our airport also named after Nur Sultan. There are many streets after the name of Nur Sultan. Nur Sultan is our dictator for the past 30 years. About GDP nominal will be almost $180 billion, and per capita it will be almost $10,000. The official language in Kazakhstan is Kazakh language. Kazakh language is absolutely different from Russian language, because some people, they might think that is Russian language or Turkish language, etc. Kazakh language is absolutely different from Russian or Turkish. It has some similarities with Turkish language, but absolutely is different. The other main language will be Russian. The president, current president, his name is Kassym-Jomart Tokayev. He became president last year in June 2019, after the official rule of our dictator Nazarbayev for the past 30 years. He just put him as his successor, and indeed nowadays we have two different governments in Kazakhstan: is the government of our current President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev and the government of our dictator Nazarbayev. So frequently he goes to the public, he meets some leaders like Putin or some Central Asian leaders, and he actually underestimate the work of current president of Kassym-Jomart Tokayev. Many people joke that Kassym-Jomart Tokayev is actually a puppet of Nazarbayev. So let me go to the brief history of ancient history of Kazakhstan. So Kazakhstan actually is a place where horses were domesticated. So people who don't know, so in Kazakhstan, there are a lot of British scientists. They found the evidence that first horses were domesticated in the northern part of Kazakhstan. Also, Kazakhstan, the place where apples and garlics were originated. So about the brief history, in 2000 BC in Kazakhstan lived Aryan tribes or Indo-European tribes. Then later they moved towards the India, Pakistan and other parts of the world. After Aryan tribes, 2000 BC and 1000 BC, there created a new nation. It's called Saka nation. Saka nation, it's basically located in Central Asia, in some parts of Eurasia. It's Central Asian nomadic tribes, Central Asian nomad people. The interesting thing about this nation, I would say, on their culture, they used a lot of ornaments, and they used particular about the animal ornaments. So they believe it to the spirit, they believe to spirit of animals, and etc. I would say some of interesting history parts of Saka nation is probably you all know about Persian Empire and about Cyrus. So Cyrus, back in the ancient times, he crossed the river Sirdarya to conquer this Saka nation in Central Asia. It was modern Kazakhstan, and indeed his army absolutely lost the battle, and the queen of Saka nation, Tomiris or Tumar Hanım, she cut the head of Cyrus, the Persian Emperor Cyrus, and she put his head to the bucket full of his blood, his head, and she said, "You came to this nation, to this country, to make blood everywhere, and now you are drinking your blood yourself from the bucket of your blood." So Saka nation were very, very strong. I would say they were very brave warriors, and many Persian emperors, they paid to Saka warriors and attract them to their army, military. And if you will, probably you read history when Persian Empire invaded to ancient Greek, so they used a lot of Saka nation army. So Saka nation army, most their army were horses, on horses. So there are a lot of historical, I was reading about some history parts and about the ancient Greeks. In their mythology, you probably know about centaurs. So centaurs, I hope I pronounced it correct, it's a half man body and half horse body. So actually it came from the Saka nation warriors, because that warriors, they every time used horses, they slept on the horses, they ride horses, they fight on the horses. So this centaurs came from Saka nation when Greeks saw them first. So Another thing I would like to tell you about the Huns. So after basically Saka nation collapsed, after them on the behalf of Saka nation came another organized another empire. It calls Huns or Hunnu. Probably you heard about Attila Huns. So all Attila and his predecessors, they created new nation, new state, which calls Hunnu state. The first written information about Huns was dated 9th century BC, and the Hunnu state actually collapsed in 5th century. So the main leader or the main king of Hunnu people nation was Attila. Attila, he united all Central Asian, all Eurasian nomadic tribes, and he went for big war against Roman Empire. He actually captured and conquered many parts of modern German, a lot of German tribes, and also he captured the one part of Roman Empire. You know, probably all of you know that Roman Empire back in the day were divided to empires. First, one empire was called Western Roman Empire, and the other one was Eastern Roman Empire. So Eastern Roman Empire actually were paying a lot of taxes and contributions to Attila, to Huns. In 451, there was a main battle. So there was Roman Empire army united with the Franks and with German tribes against Huns. In that battle, Attila actually lost, but he recovered very quickly. And next year, he came with his big army, and he stayed near to the wall of Rome city. So Roman Caesar, he actually flew from the Rome, and then later they give the Roman Caesar, Roman emperor, give his cousin to Attila as a wife. So there are some, like in history, written that this Roman wife, she actually killed, either she poisoned Attila or she used knife to kill him. And after his death, the Huns Empire actually collapsed, were divided. So after Huns Empire, there was on a base of this Hun nation created another empire. It calls Turkic Empire. It's actually Saka nation, Huns, Turkic Empire. It's actually basically it's same culture, it's same people, it's same Central Asian, Eurasian nomads. So they just had a different name throughout the history. So Turkic Empire was created in Altai Mountain, is modern Kazakhstan, modern Mongolia, and part of Russia. So that Altai Mountain, it's actually it's holy place for many Turkic nations, even nowadays. So on that Altai Mountain, Turkic people, they started came up with a new way of using metal. So they used new metal, iron, and different kind of metals to create very strong arms, very strong knives, very strong swords, etc. From that area, Altai Mountain, Turkic Empire or Turkic nation came or was born. So it's lived only actually about 2 centuries, so between 6th to 8th century, and the many tribes around the Central Asia and around Eurasia, they were fighting with each other. So they created new empire, Turkic Empire, and some people, they mistakenly think about Turkic Empire as a Turkish Empire, which is absolutely different. So about Turkish Empire, they are actually in Central Asia, different tribes, same tribes. They every time had war with each other. And one tribe, they actually lost, Seljuks. So Seljuks were living, and Oghuz tribes, they were living in modern Kazakhstan and Turkmenistan, so that are areas. So they lost to another Central Asian tribe called Kipchaks. So the Oghuz and Seljuks, they moved towards modern Turkey. So, and then in Turkey, they created Ottoman Empire or Turkish Empire which is well known in the history. So even nowadays, many Turkish people, they say their ancestors came from Kazakhstan, from Turkmenistan. So our language a little bit still similar, but in general it's very different because so many years already gone, and it's the language already transformed. So after I would say about like interesting story about like one which I remember about Turkic Empire. It's that there were different kings of Turkic Empire, and sometimes Turkic Empire was that so big, that so strong. Modern most part of Russia, Central Asia, big part of China, Pakistan, all this huge territory were under big control of Turkic Empire. And different Turkic kings said sometimes they were very strong, sometimes they were weak. And in 8th century, the Turkic Empire were divided to Western and Eastern part because it became too big. It was too hard to control it. And these two parts, they started fighting with each other, kind of civil wars. I remember there was some like Turkic emperors, when the empire became very weak, there was a lot of wars with China, and China used its diplomacy, I would say, very successfully. The Chinese emperors give their daughters to Turkic emperors. They paid a lot of money. They used different ways to somehow to weaken this Turkic Empire, and they played main role that Turkic Empire were divided and they started war between each other. So Chinese diplomacy, a lot of spies, they used very well techniques to divide the very strong neighbor Turkic Empire, because indeed the Chinese, they were under influence of Turkic Empire and they paid them big contributions. So there was one Turkic emperor who came to the power when Turkic Empire was very weak, when it lost its power. And when he started again uniting Turkic tribes, so one day the Chinese diplomats, Chinese embassy came to Turkic, weakened Turkic emperor, and he said, give me your horses. So then Turkic emperors, he started taking advice from his like team, and they said don't give to Chinese your horses, your best horses. It's not good. It's not good for our name of our empire. But anyway, the Turkic emperor, he said, we are not ready to fight with Chinese. Our country, our nation, empire is too weak right now. So he gave his best forces to Chinese diplomats, which they transferred to Chinese king. Then next time they came with another demanding. Chinese, they started asking him, the Turkic emperor, give your best, most loved wife. So he also again got advice from his teammates, from statesmen, and they said, don't give your wife to Chinese. It's not good for our empire. We need to fight with them. But the Turkic king, he said, no, it's not the right time. I can have another wife. So he gave his best, most loved wife to Chinese emperor. So next time they came with a third demand. Chinese diplomats, they asked the part of land of Turkic Empire. Then Turkic emperor, he said, now is the right time when we need to fight with the Chinese. The most sacred which we have is our land, and we're not going to give it to foreigners. So they started quickly military attack to China, and this is how they again became controlling Chinese government. So they won that war. So next, I would say about Mongol Empire. In the 8th century, when Turkic Empire collapsed, on the behalf of Turkic Empire, there were created another empire, which was Mongol Empire. So you probably know about great Genghis Khan. In 1206, he became a Khan of all nomads in that region. Some people, they say that it's only about Mongols, about ethnic Mongols. So ethnic Mongols, they actually calls Halha Mongols. And there are some historians, they say about the name, what does mean the Mongol name. In Kazakh history, there are two theories. One, Mongol, which is from Kazakh language, if you will translate to English, means 1,000 hands. Why 1,000 hands? Because the Genghis Khan, he actually divided his army to 10 hands, to 100 hands, 1,000 hands, 10,000 hands. This is how he divided his name, and he called it Mongol, which is 1,000 hands. One theory says that, and the other Kazakh historians' theory says that Mongol word came from Manga Yel, which is Kazakh, from Kazakh language, means the nation, like eternal nation, infinity, eternal nation which will live forever. So there are a few theories. So Genghis Khan, he actually united all Central Asian, all Eurasian nomadic tribes, and he gave them common name, Mongol, which is currently connected with the modern Mongolia. On that part, a lot of tribes, their main role played actually tribe called Kipchaks, which later were a main core tribe to create Kazakh people, Kazakh kingdom. So Mongol Empire, as you know, it's one of the largest empire in the world history. The Mongol Empire, Genghis Khan, when he was born in 1155, when he just born, in his hand there was blood. So he was born with a palm, and when his mother or father opened the palm, they found a lot of blood. So some like mythologies, they say he came with the blood to shape the whole world and to bring world to the bloody wars. So he actually conquered a lot of parts of Eurasia, modern Russia, Kazakhstan, Central Asia, China, Pakistan. He went even towards India, and his grandson Batu Khan, Great Batu Khan, he conquered the rest of Kiev Rus. Back in the days, there wasn't any Russia. There was Kiev Rus. It actually was a very small state, very weak and small state near to modern Ukraine, Kiev. Mainly they habited in forests. So he conquered that area, and he also went towards he conquered the part of Europe, even parts of Germany and Italy. Then suddenly, Great Batu Khan, he died, but his main goal, idea was to conquer whole Europe. So actually, Genghis Khan, before he died, he gave will or inherited the idea that all Mongolian horses, they have to stop in a place where water comes, because, well, obviously horses cannot go through the water. So he said that our borders should be only water, only oceans. So his main idea and his successor main idea was to conquer whole possible lands which existed on that time. So after Mongolian Empire collapsed, it's eventually collapsed like a few centuries later, 3 centuries, 4 centuries about this time. There was also another empire which came, Timur Empire. Probably you might heard about Timur Empire. He actually he came from Mongolic tribe which calls Barlas. His empire created in modern Uzbekistan. Samarkand was the capital city of Timur Empire, Timurid. Timur, he actually conquered 27 countries, and Timur army was the main barrier toward Turkish Empire to conquer Europe. So many European leaders, they came towards Timur, and they give him a lot of gifts, and they tried with different sweet talks and gifts, make him attack the Turkish emperor, which eventually the Timur did, and he put Turkish emperor to the cage. And that Turkish Osman Bayezid, the name of Turkish emperor was Bayezid on that time. He actually, a lot of European countries feared the Bayezid because he started conquered Europe. So they asked help of Timur, which he did, and he captured the Bayezid, and Bayezid a few years later died in that cage where he kept the slave at the slave of the war. So after Timur Empire was gone, there was creation of new kingdoms, of new empires. So one of them was Kazakh Khanate. Kazakh Khanate or Kazakh Kingdom created in 1465. So it's created on a basis of Mongolian Emperor, on the basis of Timur Empire, on the basis of Golden Horde. So it's inherited all these nomadic empires on a Kazakh Khanate, and there was also creation of Uzbek Khanate. So Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan in future, in that time and in future, they became main competitors. So Kazakh Khanate created in 1465. The kings of Kazakh Khanate, they were descendants, directly descendants of Great Genghis Khan. So in the Eurasian steppe, there was, you could become Khan, which means king, only if you have direct descendants from Genghis Khan. So Genghis Khan blood, he called his like royal blood, like golden blood, golden blood, I would say. So only if you belong to royal family of Genghis Khan, you could become the official rule of the Central Asian emperors. So Kazakh emperors, Kazakh kings, they were descendants from Genghis Khan. They created Kazakh Khanate, and Uzbek Khanate also. Their emperor also were the descendants of Great Genghis Khan, but from different sons. So Kazakh Khanate was created by the oldest son of Great Genghis Khan. His name is Joshi Khan, which there is some theories that the oldest son of Genghis Khan was killed by Genghis Khan himself because he didn't accept the order of Genghis Khan. There are a few theories. Anyway, the Kazakh Khanate belonged to the oldest son of Great Genghis Khan. Uzbek Khanate, I think it's belonged either to second or to the third son of Great Genghis Khan. So Great Genghis Khan, he had 4 sons. So the empire after his death was divided between 4 his sons. So in the medieval century, in 1016, 17th century, 18th century, there was one empire which created near to Mongolia, between Mongolia, current Mongolia, and inner Mongolia or southern Mongolia, which is nowadays occupied territory by China and belong to China. In that place, created another nomad Central Eurasian nomad empire, which calls Jungarian Empire or Jungar Kingdom. So that kingdom actually tried to capture Kazakh Khanate. So between Kazakh Khanate and Jungarian Khanate, there was few century war. I was reading that somewhere says that was the longest war in human history. Before I was reading that there was 100 years of war between England and France in medieval century, and this war was about a few hundred centuries. I think it's about 200 years. So Kazakh Khanate actually back in the days after 1600s, it became very weak country because the main king, when he died, he actually inherited his empire to his 3 sons, and that 3 sons, they started dividing the Kazakh Khanate. And they even started, sometimes even they had some war conflicts between these 3 parts of Kazakh Khanate. And when Jungarians attacked Kazakhs, some parts of Kazakh Khanate didn't help to another part. This is how Kazakh Khanate started losing the battle to Jungarian Empire, Jungarian Khanate. And in that time, Jungars actually killed a lot of Kazakh Kazakhs while they were conquering the Kazakh Khanate. So in that moment, in 1731, there are first Kazakh Khan or Kazakh king who started sending the diplomats to Russian Empire and asked the union and help from Russian Empire. So I think I can stop from here, and then later I will continue with the Russian Empire and Soviet Union.
Okay, thank you, Gani, for that wonderful overview. At this time, if anyone has any questions up until this point, I know we covered over, I guess, 2,000 years of history in 20 minutes, but if anyone has any questions, feel free to raise your hand and we will direct them to Gani. I guess while we're waiting for questions, I do have a question for Gani.
Sure.
It seems like the notion of hospitality is an important cultural identity for Kazakhs. Can you tell me how that plays into, I guess, the history of Kazakhstan?
The notion of hospitality, yeah, is very important. I remember from history of like Central Asian nomads, there was like rule. If, for example, your enemy goes to your home, you cannot kill him at your home. This is like the rule in the steppe. So if he's your guest, you are not allowed to kill him. It's one of the most important rule. And I think it shows the main hospitality of Kazakhs. You can kill each other, you can have war, but if your enemy goes to your home to be your guest, you can kill him. So it was the rule. In Kazakh tradition, Kazakh people are very hospitable, and I'm not sure why. Because I would say maybe because there were so many different tribes, Central Asian nomad tribes, and maybe when you are guest, maybe when you talk, maybe when you have food together, drinks together, maybe on that moment there will be peace, and maybe through that way, maybe many tribes, they tried to settle peace between different tribes. So I think maybe it became like most important thing to unite different tribes, because even like when Genghis Khan or maybe some Turkic emperors, when they tried to unite all tribes, they called them to the as a guest to their home, where they had a lot of food, nice food, talks, and from that places, there how they could build unity, and the place where they could go war to other countries. I think this is.
Okay. Does anyone else have questions for Gani? If so, you could raise your hand and we could direct them to Gani. No one? Okay.
I have a question.
Oh, sure. I'm sorry. Okay. If you do have questions, you could also use the app function, but I see, let's see, Mara and Piku. Good. Mara first.
Well, I wanted to ask you, Gani, if you've seen the movie Mongol about Genghis Khan, and if you feel that's historically accurate.
Yeah, thanks so much for the question. Mara, I would say that the movie actually made by Russia. So I wouldn't say, I would say that the many movies which nowadays created by Russia or China about Genghis Khan is some of them or most of them are actually not accurate. So Russia actually trying to show that the Genghis Khan, there are also a lot of Russian historian, they said that Genghis Khan, he actually was Russian, which actually, I mean, false, absolutely, because in that time, even Russian people didn't exist, Russian country didn't exist. There was only small part, Kiev Rus, which is in modern Kiev area. It's very small town, forest, and they were actually ruled by Vikings. They called Vikings to rule them. And also there are some Chinese movies created by China, and China also trying to show that they are actually they are descendants of Mongol Empire of great Genghis Khan, because I think these two big countries is trying to take Genghis Khan as their national hero, because if they will succeed, then they will start saying actually this land, Mongolia, Kazakhstan, all should belong us because we are descendants of great Genghis Khan. So it's actually a very dangerous ideology, I would say, and they falsely trying to change history. Thank you for the question.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Hi, my name is Piku. I'm sorry that I joined a little bit late. I have traveled to Kazakhstan, both Almaty and Astana, maybe about a half a dozen times in the last few years, and I love it. My question is a bit more socio-cultural. I think you stopped around 1500s, 1600s, right? And I was trying to envision what it looked like then and what the people, what their lifestyle was. And, when you visit Kazakhstan, it's obviously very modern now in Almaty and Astana, but then you can go and get a flavor for the nomadic lifestyle, living in yurts and that pastoral kind of lifestyle. And I'm trying to picture what it was like at that time, kind of on a day-to-day basis for people living in Kazakhstan culturally, like socio-culturally. Do you have a sense of that? And are you able to share a little bit about that?
Thanks so much, Pico, and I'm very happy that you visited Kazakhstan because many people even don't know Kazakhstan at all. So thank you so much for question. It's an interesting question. Maybe it's even hard to answer to this question because since we became part of Russia, which started in 1731, the Russian historian, one of them were very played main role in Russian Empire. He actually changed the history a lot. And during the Soviet Union, Russian Empire, they changed a lot of history of Kazakh people. They destroyed a lot of historically important ancient either like structure, buildings, or some ornaments. They just destroyed it. So, and they rewrote our history. But as with the information which I have, I think in that period of in Kazakh kingdom, in Kazakh Khanate, people, their like social life were in one of the most important was to respect elderly people. So in Kazakh culture, for example, if all elderly people speak, you cannot start first speaking before elderly people speak. This is first. The other one is when you need to serve them, you need to bring them food, you need to be very hospitable if you are younger than them. And you need every time go and shake their hands with your two hands. So the main thing I would say in that period, there was the values of the nation. Unfortunately, nowadays we lost most of that values, unfortunately. So I would say the first was the value, respect elderly people, respect the history, respect the culture. And in that time, I think there was a big opposition in Kazakh kingdom. So there was a lot of, I just care the people who could play national instrument Dombra, and they actually has the right to tell in front of public against the king. If they don't like what he has done, they had the right to tell about it openly, and no one could kill them, no one could punish them. So they were like, there was like step democracy, which unfortunately nowadays we don't have in Kazakhstan. So I would say in that period of history, Kazakh people were brave. Kazakh people were very honored and respect the guests, the elderly people. Also, I would say, in the other hand, a woman actually played also a very big role in Kazakh history. Before, I would say, Islam came to Kazakhstan, Kazakh, in like ancestor of Kazakh people, like Saka nation or Hun, there were a lot of women as a queens. So it was absolutely normal to have a woman as a queen in a past Kazakh culture. So I would say it was something like that.
Gani, here's a question from the
Sure.
chat room regarding religion. I guess the question is, is there a predominant religion, and how much of it has changed over time throughout history?
Yeah, nowadays the dominant religion will be Islam. I would say it's about 70% considering themselves Muslims, but I would say that they are probably less less religious compared with, let's say, maybe Saudi or Pakistan. I would say very less, much less, because we have nightclubs, we have restaurants, we have karaoke, we have everything basically, which like US has. And there are about 30% maybe will be Orthodox Christianity, because there are a lot of Russian, Ukrainians. And throughout the history in the past, I actually forgot to mention you that Kazakh people and Native American people has a big connection culturally and with even DNA, with genes. So I was reading that there are some Native American people, they actually moved from Altai Mountains like a few millennia ago through like when the lands were connected, they moved to Northern America. And there are many like proofs for that. So one of them will be shamanism. So shamanism is kind of religion, not exactly, it's more about spirituality, to believe in spirits and nature, which absolutely has same like as in Kazakh culture and in Native American people. And also there are, when I visited, like in 2012, when I visited the Navajo Nation, I also discovered that there are some words, Kazakh words, same as Native American words. For example, Native American word, they have a word kayak, which in Kazakh sounds like kayak, which means absolutely the same as a small boat. There are a lot of other words like kel and different others. So I was reading that there are actually about 200 words similar with the Kazakh and some Native American tribes words. And as I said, the shamanism was like played main role in both cultures. And also there are another thing I would say, that in Altai Mountain, there are one Kazakh tribe, they still nowadays, I heard they use a pipe, which is Native American people, they call it pipe of peace. So that was very interesting discovery for me. So, and I also had a DNA test like in 2016, and I found that I have Native American Indian blood, the genes on my blood. So about the question which you asked about the religion. So there was, before we believed to Tengri, shamanism. So shaman was a caste of people who were connected spirituals with the common people. So they were like middlemen, I would say. So in that moment in ancient history, we believe it to Tengri. Tengri is eternal blue sky. And also we believe to some parts of nature. After that, in 960, one of kingdom which is were located in modern Kazakhstan, they announced that their main official religion is Islam. So like in 8th century, Central Asian nomads and Arab world, they had conflict, they had war, constant war. Since that both of them were nomads and Arabs couldn't capture the Central Asian tribes, they started bringing religion. So, and religion, like after few centuries, became dominant religion in that part of Central Asia. And also I would say that in some of part of Kazakhstan, or in some part of modern Russia, there was a people, Khazars. Some people, some historians, they say that Khazar nation is actually ancestor of Kazakh nation. So Khazar nation, their main official religion actually was Judaism. And also in part of Kazakhstan, in southern east part of Kazakhstan, in some like canyons, there are the petroglyphs of Buddha. So some people believe to Buddhism, their religion was Buddhism. But anyway, nowadays the main religion is Islam in Kazakhstan. Yeah.
Okay, does anyone else have any questions? No? Okay. one thing I do before I forget. What about
Sure.
food? What are some of the popular cuisines in Kazakhstan?
Popular cuisines, we eat a lot of horses. Horse meat. I know American people, as they hear we eat horses, they started crying. But we eat horses, and we drink horse milk. We drink camel's milk. Sometimes I was thinking why we eat that much meat. And there is Kazakh proverb or Kazakh joke. Kazakh actually the second nation who eat most meat in the world after wolves. So they joke like this. I was thinking why. So as I said, that our actually ancestors, they had constant war. They were capturing different countries, different nations. So I would say to quickly get the calories, energy, they had to eat meat. So they basically, our food is mainly, like I would say 90% is just meat. It's very quickly, there is no like in Korean or Japanese or Chinese, you need to prepare so many dishes. No, most of them it's meat and milk. And the main food cuisine is called beshparmak or Kazakh yet, which is basically dough and a lot of meat.
Very interesting. Okay, let's move on to the second segment, which will cover a period of approximately 1730 to about early 1990s. And again, I'm going to put up a map here pretty soon, but this will show the geographic proximity of Kazakhstan to Russia. And most of the northern border is shared with Russia. So you'll get a good idea as to what kind of relations Kazakhstan had with this neighbor to the north. So go ahead, Gani. Second part.
Yeah, I just see the question roughly. Okay, so that question is, which I'm going to tell now. So in 1731, as I said, Kazakh Khanate were divided in three kingdoms. So and Kazakh nation, even still nowadays, they divide themselves in three big groups, which is Uluzhus or the Great group, middle group, and youngest group or young group. I'm trying to translate directly. So the Great group were the area were controlled by one Kazakh Khan. The middle part were ruled by another Khan, and the other one was ruled by another. So Kazakh kingdom basically divided into three parts. So the one part which calls Kishijus, which I said the young or youngest group, they started sending messages and diplomats to Russian Empire, and they were starting diplomatic connection with Russian Empire, and they asked about union. So nowadays there are, like as I said before, that Russian, actually when we became part of Russia, Soviet Union, the heritage, they changed a lot about our history. There was a lot of like written documents important between that era, that time, and I believe some of them were destroyed by Russian government, or they keeping it in secret. So according to the official history, that Kazakh king of Kishijus, of small group, he sent diplomats and he asked to become part of Russian Empire. So nowadays some Kazakh historian, they say actually he didn't send like this diplomats, he just asked about military help and military like connection, like collaboration against Jungar kingdom, which started attacking and capturing big parts of Kazakh kingdom. So anyway, from that moment, the small group or Kishijus of Kazakh Khan, they started becoming part of Russian Empire. And after that, well, there are some like written documents when the king of that part of small group, he made a deal with the Russian Empire that Russian Empire will be helping to Kazakh kingdom and go against war against the Jungarian kingdom, which actually Russian Empire didn't follow the deal. So and in that moment, even the wars, Russian actually give a lot of military, a lot of artillery, a lot of guns to Jungars to even more kill Kazakhs. So it was like very sneaky game when like Russian looked like a savior, our savior, which is actually didn't save us at all, Kazakhs, but instead is actually were hiddenly, secretly helping to Jungars. So the main parts, I think, why Kazakh actually were losing battle to Jungar kingdom, there was few things. First, Kazakh kingdom wasn't united. So it was, as I said, it was divided in three parts. The other thing was is that we in technology, in the military, were behind of like European countries. And European countries, they had on that time a lot of artillery, they had gun. Kazakhs, they didn't have like this like technological progress. Unfortunately, they only had like as their ancestors swords. They this where is it different kind of like ancient the military. I don't know how to describe in English. So they didn't have any guns, they didn't have any artillery. So this was one of the reasons why they were quickly occupied main territory of Kazakh kingdom by Jungars. So Jungars, as I said before, it's actually also nomadic nation. It's created around current Mongolia and southern Mongolia, which nowadays belong to China. So in the other hand, the Russian, they actually started building a lot of cities, but that cities, they were mainly played a big role not to protect Kazakhs from Jungars, but it's played to colonization of Kazakh kingdom. So Russian Empire diplomats, they said that they are going to build a lot of like military bases in Kazakh kingdom to protect Kazakhs. But later, it was obviously that was a big plan to capture, to conquer Kazakh kingdom. So this is how it started, Russian colonization of Kazakhstan. So then later, the middle part of kingdom, they also accepted the Russian Empire. Then the last, the greater part of kingdom, they also accepted Russian Empire. Some of them, as I said, they said they accepted. Another historian, they said this actually was conquered, colonized by Russian. So it's really hard to tell right now how it was on that moment, really history. But I think in future we will know what was really happening in that moment. So the Russian Empire, after one of the deal of Russian Empire, they said that they not gonna touch Kazakh kingdom, Kazakh Khans, Kazakh kings. So they will not. So Kazakh will be ruled by Kazakhs. But actually later it showed that in 1870 Russian Empire, they started making a lot of reforms in Kazakh kingdom. So they just basically erased the title a king. So there wasn't any more kings in Kazakh kingdom. All the rulers, they divided many rulers in different Kazakh tribes. So this is how they weakened Kazakh kingdom, by dividing each tribe against each other and putting their own rulers and playing like this, like divide and conquer. This is well played for a few centuries in Kazakh kingdom. And then after Kazakh kingdom fall, basically all Central Asian fall under the rule of Russian Empire. There is one Russian Empire, his name is Peter the Great. He said that Kazakhstan or Kazakh kingdom is a key to Asia, key and the gate to Asia. And probably you have heard about Great Game. So in that like in 19th century, there are two different empires, Russian Empire and British Empire. They played a big game to capture or to dominate the Asia. So main of this Great Game battle was actually played in modern Kazakhstan. So there are a lot of British spies. They went through Uzbekistan to Kazakhstan, and also Russian tried outplay and capture the Afghanistan through Kazakhstan. There will be a pathway or gateway to Afghanistan. Through Afghanistan will be pathway to India. There are, I believe, even the one of Russian emperor, his name is Pavel, who was killed by his son. He actually sent the army to capture conquered India. It was through Kazakhstan, Afghanistan, directly to India. He made deal with Napoleon Bonaparte, but he suddenly died, and then that military expedition was quickly over. So this great game played in Central Asia, in Kazakhstan, and other thing I would say that many Kazakh kings on that time, when they become part of Russia, they tried to become independent. They tried to play their own game, be sovereign and independent from Russian Empire. One of them, I would say about, let me say, just a second. I would say about Ablai Khan. He was one of the main king, played main role. He actually tried to make Kazakh kingdom independent from Russian Empire and from Chinese Empire. In that time, in 18th century, there are Russian, Chinese military. They went when the Jungarian kingdom collapsed. It's actually were captured by Chinese Empire. They created a genocide against Jungarian people. Most of them just was, I would say all of them, maybe 90% were killed by Chinese military. And then after that, they crossed the Kazakh Khanate border, and their goal was to conquer, to capture Kazakh kingdom as well. So actually they went through the big part of northern part of Kazakhstan, and they almost went to the end of southern border of Kazakh kingdom. And there, our king on that time, Ablai Khan, he had the main battle against Chinese army. The different sources say different. Some of them say that there was 20,000 of Chinese warriors came to Kazakh kingdom. The other source says it was 70,000. Anyway, there were 2 Chinese generals who went to capture Kazakh kingdom. So on that time, placed near Kokshetau town, Ablai Khan, he gave main battle against Chinese soldiers, Chinese military. On that battle, Chinese absolutely lost. So they ran away from Kazakh kingdom. So this is how Kazakh kingdom became again, I would say, very strong on that moment. And also some historians, they say that the Ablai Khan, he actually sent the diplomats to China and to Russia, and he tried outplayed both of them. Some even historians, they said he formally accepted the dominance of China and dominance of Russia on the same time. So, and in this case, Russia didn't want to push him too much because they're afraid that he will accept a Chinese government, and China also didn't want to push him too much because they were afraid that he will accept even more Russian dominance. So in that period, Kazakh, I would say, became independent de facto again, maybe de jure not, but it became again independent. After the death of that Khan, Ablai Khan, Kazakhstan again divided to 3 different parts. It became again weak, and there was one more king. His name is Khan. His name is Kenesari Khan. He in 1837, between 1837 and 1847, 10 years, he actually fought against the Russian Empire to make Kazakhstan independent. He was the last Kazakh king who united all Kazakh people, all 3 different groups. So he actually, unfortunately, he was killed in the military. He went to Kyrgyzstan, modern Kyrgyzstan. He asked Kyrgyz people unite with Kazakh people and fight against Russians. But Russian, their diplomats, they paid to Kyrgyz leaders, and they said that don't unite with Kazakhs. And they said, if you will give us the head of Kenesari Khan, Kazakh king, we will give you a lot of money. So the Kyrgyz, many leaders of many Kyrgyz tribes, they didn't accept Kenesari, and they started actually fighting with him. So, and there was about 10,000 of Kinisaray Khan warriors against of 100,000 different sources, different 100,000 of Kyrgyz people. So in that war, he actually lost that battle, and his little brother of Kinisaray Khan, he said, let's run away to Kazakhstan, Kazakh kingdom, will again create new army. But Kinisaray Khan, in that battle, he said, I will not leave my soldiers, and he actually died on that battle. So Kyrgyz leaders cut his head and sent that head to Russian Empire, and they got a lot of awards. And even nowadays, Russia keeping our head of our last king, and they try not to return it, which is, I would say, a very big humiliation to our nation. So this was last movement when Kazakh kings tried to become independent from Russian Empire. So later, as I said, Kazakh kingdom even was divided even more by the hand of Russian Empire to weaken the Kazakh kingdom. Then there was title kings were erased, Huns, and there was just like, I would say, like areas different. They divided Kazakhstan to different areas. So this is how basically Russian colonization of Kazakhstan went. It went through a lot of blood, through capturing the land, through kicking out Kazakhs from their land. So this was like a big Russian heritage. So as you know, in 1914 and 1918, in that part of place, like in Europe, there started Second World War. Russia actually was on a were together in a union with Britain, with France, against Turkey, against German, against Austro-Wengers Empire, and Russia should won that First World War, but Russia officially actually lost that war, even though his Russians allies, England and France, won. So the Russia lost First World War, and after that there was a lot of a lot of communist movement. Actually, communist movement, I would say, started in 1905. On that time, there was first Russian workers' unions. They started protesting. They didn't go to war. From that moment, Russian Empire very aggressively act towards its worker unions. They shut them in St. Petersburg. So in 1918, there started big communist movement, and they actually overthrow Romanov's family, royal family. Later, they shot all Romanov's family. And then in 1917, there was a revolution in Russia, and Russia actually, in 1920, 1922, became a Soviet Union, as a Soviet country, communist country. So in that moment of period of history in Kazakhstan, in 1917, 1920, there was a movement of national intellectuals, which they created a new government, which calls Alash Orda, and they created Alash Kazakh autonomy. And their main role, their main idea was to make Kazakhstan, whole Central Asia, independent from Russia. They got the title of the autonomy, Alash autonomy, but in 1937, in 1938, actually all Alash Orda government members, they were killed by the Russian communists, and there was big repression of 100,000 people in Kazakhstan sent to different concentration camps, probably you heard about Karlak, about Gulag, about Alger, and main Kazakh intellectuals, writers, poets, patriots, intellectuals, and government people of Kazakh government, they were killed on that period of the time. So this is how Soviet Union actually created in Kazakhstan. And that Alash Orda government, they actually partially were accepting and were making deal with communists and with the with a opposing side. We call them Belogvardiyцы, or white military. I'm just directly translating. So there was a part groups in Russian Empire who was against of Russian Emperor. It called Soviets or communists. They tried to kill it and they succeeded. And there was another part of who was against of communists. They actually were pro-royalist. So that pro-royalist, our government, Alashorda, they were playing with both sides. They tried to make deal best for them. But eventually Soviets, they won that civil war inside of Russian Empire, and they destroyed the Alashorda autonomy, Alashorda government, and they killed all that intellectuals. So this is how Soviet Union created in Kazakhstan. And here's the other part which I would like to tell you. So I'm trying to be as much as possible unbiased towards Soviet Union. Even Soviet Union killed a lot of Kazakh people, but I will try to give you the good parts which they did and the bad parts which they did. So the bad part which they did in 1931, between 31 and 33, they created famine in Kazakhstan. It was famine in Kazakhstan and Ukraine and many other parts of Russian Empire in Soviet Union. So different sources say different. Some historians, they say that in that famine, man-made created famine, 50% of Kazakh ethnicity were died or killed. Some historians, they say up to 80% of Kazakh population were killed in that famine. So why and how this famine happened? The Russian Soviet communists, they started taking for the military purpose and from different other purpose from modern Kazakhstan, the horses, cows. So as I said before, Kazakhs, they are nomad people. So all what they have is horses, mainly horses, sheep, little bit cows. So main of their like daily life were horses. When Soviets came and they took all horses, so there I would give you the statistic. On that time, Kazakhstan had 40 million of horses. After Soviets came and that started taking that all horses, only 4 million horses left. So that brought to big famine. So the Soviets, they said that the horses, sheep, we need sent to western part of Russia because St. Petersburg, Moscow, they are under the threat of that they will not have any food. These big cities, Russian cities, will not survive. So they started taking all horses, sheep from Kazakhstan, and they made basically Kazakhstan naked, which brought to big famine. Also, they created a new economic program, which calls collectivization, which basically different farms, different Kazakh farms, to make them one as a big union. So when they started bringing all horses, all sheep to one places, basically that horses and sheep, because they have limit of the land, they cannot find food, and therefore a lot of horses and sheep also were dying. And also most of them actually were put to trains and shipped to Russia, to St. Petersburg and Moscow. So this is how the famine happened in Kazakhstan. I believe in Ukraine about 10 million people were died on that famine. In Kazakhstan, from 2 to 3 million of population were killed in that famine. The population total, historian they say, of Kazakh were about 4 million. And also historian they say that about 1 million of ethnic Kazakhs from Kazakhstan, they moved to different parts of the world, to China. In China, you probably heard about East Turkestan, which is historically belonged to all whole Turkic people. So they moved there, they moved to Iran, they moved to Turkey, Pakistan, everywhere. So now the other part, good thing about the Soviet heritage, I would say the theater and art were developing under the rule of Soviet Union in 1936. There are a lot of musical came out, famous Kızılbek, a lot of theaters were opened during that period in 1936. Also, the Soviets, they actually created universities in Kazakhstan. First university was founded in 1928, pedagogical university for teachers. Also, the Soviets built actually a lot of factories in Kazakhstan, but the bad things of that factories actually didn't have the goal to produce whole product in Kazakhstan. They were just taking mineral resources, oil, gas, and they were just sending to inner parts of Russia, where in Russia then they created full products. So that Kazakhstan became like mineral resource artery of Russia. And another statistic which I give you, during Great Patriotic War or Second World War, Kazakhstan actually Soviet, if you will take 10 bullets of Soviet guns, 9 bullets actually made in Kazakhstan. So a lot of factories were in Kazakhstan. So next I would say about the 1936-44, there was big deportation of nations. So Stalin, he deported a lot of different ethnicities, including Koreans from the eastern part of Russia. He sent a lot of Chechens, a lot of different other like Polish people, German people, and different other people he sent to Kazakhstan and to Central Asia. So it was that period of 8 years were the big deportation years, and many people actually just put like hundreds of them to very small, lightweight the trains, which is actually that train wasn't created to move people. It was for like, I don't know, some sheep, animals, or some beans, etc. So in that winter, many people who went to deportation actually died. A lot of millions of people were dying. And in that period to Kazakhstan, about 1.5 million different ethnicities were forcibly moved to Kazakhstan by Soviet government. And during Second World War, over 1,200,000 Germans, which captured during Second World War, the Soviets moved them to Kazakhstan. Also, I would like to say that another good thing, the Soviets, they built in July 1921, a first railroad which connected Turkestan, one of like famous city in Kazakhstan, and Siberia. So their main goal was to bring cheap Siberian bread to Kazakhstan and Central Asia, and from Kazakhstan and Central Asia, a lot of like cottons bring to like Siberia and to other parts of the Soviet Union. So the good thing, they built a railroad which calls Turksep. The other thing I would say, in 1937, 1939 was political repression. During that time, as I said, in Kazakhstan created many concentration camps, in Siberia created many concentration camps. So during that time, all Kazakh intellectual patriots and first Kazakh government, Alosh Orda, they were killed in that period. They were shot. So 100,000, according to statistics, in Kazakhstan were under repression. They were sent to concentration camp, and 25,000 of them were shot, were killed by the Soviet government. So another thing I would say about Great Patriotic War. So you know that Soviet Union and the Hitler fascist governments, they had a war. So during that period, many factories from western part of Russia, they transferred to Kazakhstan, and in Kazakhstan they started producing some bullets, some even other things. And from Kazakhstan actually to Great Patriotic War went 1,200,000 Kazakhs, and half of them didn't return to home. Half of them were killed in that war. And one interesting fact which I can give you, the flag of victory, which is raised above Reichstag, is like White House of German on that time, were raised by two people. One of them was Kazakh. His name is Rahimjan Koshkarbayev. He's our national hero. and the other one, his ethnicity is Tatar, which is basically also Turkic like nation, one of Tatarstan or Tatar. It's like neighbor and brother of Kazakhstan, Tatarstan next. But the Stalin, he changed that fact, and he put that two people were, one of them were Georgian, a Caucasian, because the Stalin, his ethnicity, he actually came from Georgia. He's not Russian, he's Georgian. And the other person who put the flag of victory on the Reichstag was a Russian. So this one, how they changed the history. So that was about the Second World War, Great Patriotic Wars. There were a lot of Kazakhs who went to that war. They, alongside with Russians and different Uzbeks and different other nations, they created a big history. They were heroes, and there are a lot of people unfortunately dying. So other thing I would say, after Second World War, Soviets, they created in Kazakhstan Semey atom polygon. It's for testing nuclear bombs, and they actually started testing of nuclear atomic bombs. First was in 1949, 29 August. During that period between 49 and 89, in Kazakhstan, which is eastern part, which calls nowadays Semey or Semipalatinsk city, around that city were tested about between 500 to 700 atomic bombs. They were testing under the ground, on the air, above the air, on the sky, and on the water. So because of that, like atomic nuclear testing, over 1,300,000 Kazakhs, they had affected. Many of them died. Even nowadays, that area, a lot of Kazakhs who live on that area, their children, or even they became like a mutant. They're suffering. They're suffering even nowadays. I don't know how long it will take, maybe 1,000 years to make that place clear from atomic bombs. So even like one atomic bomb could be stronger 10 times than the bomb which was thrown by America to Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So you could imagine how bad damaged the Kazakh land, Kazakh people from that testing during like almost 40-50 years. So another thing I would say, in 1954, in 1965, during that time, in the Soviets, they created new economic reforms, which called Tselina. So it's basically like using Kazakh land to raise different like beans, to raise the breads, etc. So to make that economic reform happen, they moved from western part of Russia, about 2 million of ethnic Russians and Ukrainians, to Kazakhstan. So the Russian leader Khrushchev, he said that Kazakhstan is actually a virgin land. There is no any history, there's no any culture. So you guys need to go there, you need to capture, you need to create new, like prosper place on that in Kazakhstan. So in that period of place, many historical artifacts actually were destroyed by Soviets when they were starting using the land to raise beans and breads and etc. So 2 million of ethnic Russians came to Kazakhstan, and they, according to statistics in that period, from famine, from repression, Kazakh population, ethnic Kazakh in Kazakhstan was only 28% from whole population. So about 70% in Kazakhstan actually were ethnic Russian and Ukrainians. Kazakhs were only 28%. So this big genocide, this big policy, ethnic cleansing, give the effect like this, the result. The other thing I would say, in 1954 and 1970, so in Soviet Kazakhstan, there was a Kazakh film industry created, and it was very well known and developed in the Soviet era. So there's Kazakh film, very famous, and it's its director Shaken Aymanov. He shot a lot of famous movie which played in Soviet Union, and like about 30 million of Soviet citizens. They watched that movie. Very popular, very famous, about good thing. The other thing I would say, in 1961, the Soviets, they started a program to conquer the space. In 1961, April 12th, in Kazakhstan, in Baikonur Cosmodrome, is actually world first cosmodrome, and the human basically conquered space from Kazakh land, from Kazakhstan, from Baikonur Cosmodrome. Gagarin flew to space, and this is how Soviet spaceship program became or born. The other thing I would say, in 1964 and 1986, in Kazakhstan, in Kazakh Soviet Communist Party came to the power, one of the famous and very well known in Kazakhstan, Kunaev, Din Mohamed Kunaev. He's many Kazakhs, they love him because he was actually a very good leader, even though he made some mistakes as well. So during that period, in 1964 and 1986, Kunaev was the leader of Kazakh Soviet Communist Party. So he basically was the leader of Kazakhstan. In 1960 and 1962, there was a big conflict between Kunaev and between Soviet leader Khrushchev. So Soviet leader Khrushchev, he took part of Kazakhstan, the southern part of Kazakhstan, and he just gave up to Uzbekistan, near our neighbor country, Uzbekistan. And the Khrushchev, he actually also humiliated a lot of Kazakh people. I don't know why he didn't like Kazakhstan, Kazakh people. So the leader of Kazakhstan on that time, Din Ahmed Kunaev, he was against of that, giving Kazakh land to Uzbekistan. And result of that, the Khrushchev Soviet leader, he just overthrew the Kazakh leader Kunaev, and he put ethnic Uzbek as a leader for the next 2 years. As you know, in 1962, the Khrushchev, he lost his power, and to the power came in Soviet Union Brezhnev. So Brezhnev and Kunaev, actually Kazakh leader Kunaev, they were very good friends. So when Brezhnev became leader of Soviet Union, Kazakh leader Kunaev, he became again the leader of Kazakhstan. He returned the part of which went to Uzbekistan, again to Kazakhstan. So in that period of time, in Kazakhstan, built a lot of factories, a lot of universities. The level of literacy went up. The development was very good under the rule of Kunaev. So I think I would stop here about like Soviet era, because after that starts the modern Kazakhstan and dictatorship regime. Maybe if some of you have questions, you may ask.
Sure, I guess I'll ask the first question, Ghani. So if I heard you correctly, I think you had mentioned that only 28% during the Soviet era, only 28% were people who would identify as ethnic Kazakhs. So that means the vast majority, about 70%, were either ethnic Russian or Ukrainian. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So I guess my question is, how much of the Russian and Ukrainian cultural influence still permeates today in modern Kazakhstan?
I would say it's influenced a lot. The main thing which I would say is the language. So when Kazakhstan became part of Soviet Union, I would say after 1950s, Soviets, they started very like brutally colonization or Russification of Kazakh people. So Russification is basically makes them Russian, ethnic Russian from ethnic Kazakh to make them Russians. So what they did, they actually forced everyone, they created law when everyone in Kazakhstan has to study in Russian language. Kazakh language, they started eradicating Kazakh language. And I would give you as a fact that in 1980s in Kazakhstan, there was only one school in Almaty, Kazakh school, and the rest was only Russian school. So this Russification, Russianization policy went very successful. So even nowadays, many Kazakhs, they unfortunately not able to speak Kazakh, their own language, or they speak but very bad. Also, many Kazakh who studied in Russian language or like through their mother's, father, family, they got like Russian mind. So nowadays, like many Kazakhs, they believe that Russia is our main friend, is the only ally is Russia. And some even Kazakhs, they believe it's better to become again part of Russia because Russia will save us. So I would say through this policy, through the language, eradication of Kazakh language, they created Russian mind among Kazakh people, like this.
Just a follow-up question. How much do you think that was by like forced design versus, you know, sometimes when you live next to another country, there's kind of like this natural evolution of culture where due to the forces of economic changes and other cultural influence, their language and culture also kind of evolves. So how much do you think is more of like a force, I think the term that you use is Russification versus like a natural evolution?
About natural evolution, it's really hard to me to say about natural natural evolution, because as I said, the main like things which happened in Kazakhstan, it was under big force. So I wouldn't say there was any evolutionary development. It was all through the force, because even like before, when it was Kazakh kingdom, Kazakh Khanate, Kazakh people didn't get any influence from neighbor Russian Empire, nothing, not from language, not from any other thing. So in the history which I know, so it all came through the force when they moved ethnic Russians to Kazakhstan through famine, through schools, through universities. So that is, I cannot tell that there was like evolutionary like cultural influence.
Okay. I see a hand up from Lorraine and Piku. Go ahead, Lorraine.
Sure.
Hi there. Thank you very much, first of all, for your information. It's very interesting. I'm curious about the population. Is it steady? Is it growing? Is it declining? And if it's declining, is there a lot of emigration? And is that possibly younger people? How does the population look?
Lauren, thanks so much for your question. About population, nowadays there are like, I don't know why, but statistic varies. Well, if I would say one of them, the statistic shows that 70% of Kazakhstan population is ethnic Kazakhs. I'm not sure why the statistics like over maybe like 10 years doesn't grow much or doesn't change much, even though a lot of like about, I was reading that about 1 million ethnic Kazakhs, they actually moved to Kazakhstan during last 30 years since we got independence from Soviet Union. Even though the statistic doesn't change much. I'm not sure why. Maybe our government trying to show that ethnic Kazakhs less than it is in real time. I'm not sure, because there are some like theories, because our government are under big control and influence of Putin, Russia. Maybe they don't want to show real numbers, but according to official numbers, it's 70% ethnic Kazakhs in Kazakhstan, and like maybe about 20% is Russians, Ukrainians, etc.
So when the country became independent, do you think some of the Kazakhs in neighboring countries moved back? Is that what you think?
Yes. Official statistics says 1 million ethnic Kazakhs moved back to Kazakhstan.
But do you think that young people are still leaving for opportunities outside the country? Is there a, you know, how they call a brain drain? Are there a lot of people emigrating away from the country?
Mm-hmm. So first I would say that there are diaspora abroad of Kazakh people. Diaspora, some statistics says it's 5 million, some statistics says it's 7 million ethnic Kazakhs live abroad of Kazakhstan. And a lot of immigration from Kazakhstan of ethnic Kazakhs, young Kazakhs, to foreign countries started like, I would say 3-4 years. Before, usually Kazakhs, Kazakh mentality, they never immigrate to other countries. They're very connected with the Kazakhstan. They just don't feel they just don't see in their mind to moving to other country. But like since US started making a lot of like sanction against of Russia, so Russian economy collapsed, and Kazakhstan economy actually very connected to Russian economy. So Kazakhstan economy also collapsed, and like recently 3-4 years, a lot of young Kazakhs, they started moving abroad. As I know, current statistic in US, there are 25,000 ethnic Kazakhs live in US. So last few years, a lot of numbers of Kazakhs just migrating to foreign countries.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
My pleasure.
Piku?
Yeah, I have a number of questions, but one of them is about, you know, how you describe that that there's this intense sort of presence and alliance with Russia in Kazakhstan, and that seemed to be true till today, because when I was working in that region, I traveled and worked in Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Tajikistan, and it was so prominent that Russian sort of dominance was and presence was so prominent in Kazakhstan compared to the other Central Asian countries. Although, you know, there were sort of vestiges of the influence certainly in the other countries also. But even little things like this, going back to reclaiming their original language in like Kyrgyz or Tajik, it wasn't that prominent in Kazakhstan, like this desire to reclaim Kazakh, the original Kazakh language. So my question is, what has been, you mentioned minerals at some point, but what is the big draw and what is the big interest of Russia in Kazakhstan? And I think I heard at some point that there's a lot of oil, but I'm not sure. Like, why is there such a hold of Russia on Kazakhstan as compared to the other Central Asian countries?
Mm-hmm. Thanks so much, Pico, for the question. So as I was reading about recently, there is a Washington Center. So they made research, and they made like interviews. They had a lot of respondents from Kazakhstan, and they were putting 3 different countries: US, Russia, and China. And they asked opinion of regular Kazakh citizens, who they think most like friend to Kazakhstan, who is like the biggest ally, and who is the most dangerous to Kazakhstan. So there is a statistic that most Kazakhstan, they see as Russia a most friendly and the biggest ally of Kazakh people of Kazakhstan. And their second was China, which I was very surprised. So, and the least on that was America. So according to that statistic, Kazakh people, Kazakhstan population, they very look to US in very negative perspective. And there is a reason why, because as I said, the Kazakhstan actually was brutally colonized by Russia and by Soviet Union. And even till nowadays in Kazakhstan, there are like all medias, I would say like 90% medias, it's Russian medias, federal channel, TV channels. And that federal TV channels, they every time making propaganda that US is a bad, US is the devil, Europe is the devil, Russia is such a like a good, like humble country, and it should be very rich, but because of Europe and America, it's like not that doing well. So, and people believe to that. And in Kazakhstan, like a lot of social media, there is like, for example, Mail.ru of Contact is Russian created medias. So the Kazakh informational media, I think it's belong to absolutely to Russia, who control the media, who control the information, as you know, controls the nations and countries.
But what is in it for Russia? Like why? I mean, you explained how Russia controls Kazakhstan and the mindset, but what does
Why?
Russia have to gain?
Yeah. So I would say that the main reason, I don't think that it's only about mineral resources, because indeed Russia also very rich for mineral resources, has a lot of oil, gas, as well as Kazakhstan. I think it's why Kazakhstan, because Kazakhstan has a very important geopolitical location. As I said, I give the quotation of Emperor of Russia, the Great Peter. He said Kazakhstan is a key and gate to Asia. So, you know, through Kazakhstan, you can go to Afghanistan, you can go to China, you can go to India. So that is reason, I think the Russia trying to keep Kazakhstan very tight. And also the other thing, as I said at the beginning, that Kazakhstan and Russia have the longest shared border. I think it's like 7 million. I don't remember exactly the numbers. So in that part of Russia, like in the southern part of Russia, actually the weakest part is on the southern part of Russia. There is less military divisions, military sections, like arms. So most of like military like strength of Russia is located on the western part of Russia, near to Europe. But the south part of Russia is actually very weak. Sometimes I joke, I say that Kazakhstan is the belly of Russia. So if you will conquer, if you rule or conquer Kazakhstan, you will be conquering Russia, because that part of Russia is actually very, very weak. And even though in Russia actually holding 7 military bases and polygons in Kazakhstan. So it's trying to keep Kazakhstan as much as possible through economic way, through military, through its culture, through its information. And as you know, in 2015, Kazakhstan became member of Russian created economical union, which basically erased all borders between Russia, Kazakhstan, and Belarus. And sometimes we feel that we became one of the region of Russia. Current reality.
Thank you.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Gani. Isn't there some kind of like a free trade zone, kind of like how U.S. has a NAFTA with its bordering neighbors? Doesn't Kazakhstan have like a free trade zone with its northern neighbor?
Yes, it has free, as I said about the Russian economical union. It calls Eurasian like economic union. So Kazakhstan became part of it in 2015. As you said, there is free movement of goods and labor. But the Russian leader Putin, he every time says and emphasizes that union is only about economics. It's not about politics. But as we know that Putin's Russia, they more emphasize not about economics but to politics. And actually, it's in my opinion and the opinion of many Kazakhs, it's actually the one of the steps to recreate Soviet Union. And as one interview, Putin said that the biggest tragedy of 20th century was the collapse of Soviet Union. This words quotation of Putin. And Putin this year actually said another very important thing. He said some countries which left from Soviet Union, they actually took more land which is historically belonged to them. So it was big scandal, because in that words, Kazakhstan see themselves and Ukraine see themselves. So it's actually very risky words, what he said, dangerous words.
Yeah, and I think that kind of addresses Piku's question, which is what's in it for Russia? Well, they're trying to have this kind of nostalgic reclaiming of the glories of the Soviet Union. It's no surprise that they annexed Crimea, right? Because they think that's their backyard. So, and I guess my other question is, I know Russia is looked favorably, but how much backlash is there? Because you had mentioned about the nuclear testing, and that's going to linger on for generations. So combined with that and just the overall mismanagement of the economy during the Soviet Union, how much of a backlash do you think there is?
Well, for example, I studied in Kazakh speaking school. So in our school, I think history was taught a little bit different than in Russian-speaking schools in Kazakhstan. Why I say like this? Because I've seen from my generation, like my generation youth who studied in Russian-speaking schools in Kazakhstan, I think they are more favorable to Russia. Because in our classes, when we studied in Kazakh class, in Kazakh school, our teachers, they said about many of this kind of crimes from Russia, from Soviet Union. So we raised it by the knowing this tragedy of history in our country. So we are actually very opposed to Russia, to Russian language, to Russian culture, to Russian all like initiatives, either it's military or economic. But there are some Kazakhs who studied in Russian schools in Russian language. They support Russia. So the backlash probably they will face from the Kazakh-speaking Kazakhs, I would say.
Okay. Any other questions?
Just
yes.
I'll let Mara.
Sure. Mara, go ahead.
Thank you. So I couldn't help but notice, so my mom is half Vietnamese, and she's told me about the history of how the French colonized her country, and I couldn't help but notice like Kazakhstan and Vietnam have some parallels in that way. And I wanted to ask you, so for example, my mom told me that Vietnam used to have an alphabet, but the French eradicated it. And I noticed like Kazakhstan, they use the Russian alphabet, Cyrillic, and I wondered if that was a result of the Soviet colonization.
Mm-hmm. This is a good question. And yeah, I'm so sorry to hear. I know that Vietnamese were colonized by French. I watched some documentary movies when the French, I think it was like in 1940s, I don't remember exactly dates, or maybe 1950s, when they had like, they brought a lot of artilleries, they were killing a lot of Vietnamese. So unfortunately, this kind of history, this kind of tragedy happened in many nations who were colonized by big brothers. So one of them was Russia colonizing Kazakhstan. And about the alphabet, which you said, yeah, they actually, in 1920s, in 1930s, in Kazakhstan, we had a Latin alphabet, which is like, I would say, if be very like broad, I would say it was like English letters we had. But from 1930s, the Soviet Union, they changed our letters alphabet from Latin, from English, to Russian Cyrillic. As you said, yeah, it was one of the part to Russification of ethnic Kazakh to make them Russians through alphabet, through the language, culture, etc. And yeah, it played a big role throughout the generation. And as I know, like recent, I think like 3-4 years ago, our dictator, Nazarbayev, he announced that Kazakh language will change its alphabet in 2020 from Cyrillic to Latin, back to Latin. So I'm not sure why he announced this kind of like alphabetic reforms. Was he really about Kazakh language, about Kazakhs, or maybe he just playing with Russia to show them that he's actually independent? So I think there are some games which we don't know yet, because that even he announced that new Latin version of Kazakh language is not actually accepted yet, and there are big mess. So I don't know. It's like he said, but in fact, nothing worked yet. Thanks so much for the question.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Jane. I was wondering if I could ask a question, Ghani, about your thoughts in relation to the geopolitical and perhaps economic standpoint of Kazakhstan and Russia, China's Belt and Road Initiative.
That's a good question. Thanks so much, Jane, for the question. Yeah, actually, I think maybe I will start talking about the modern history of Kazakhstan, and there I will mention about Chinese expansionism and Chinese colonialism of Kazakhstan. Is that okay? And I will answer the
Thank
question.
you so much.
Yep, you're welcome. Thank you for the question. So if anyone else has question, you may ask. If no one has, I can just move forward about the modern history of Kazakhstan.
I had a question, but maybe it'll be part of the modern history, but it was about the recent change in the name of the capital from Astana to Nur Sultan. And I was wondering, what's the political sort of story behind that?
Okay, so the Nazarbayev, when he chose like to create a new capital of Kazakhstan, which on that moment was before 1997 was Almaty city, the capital city of Kazakhstan. But Nazarbayev, he wanted to create a new capital built under his rule, and he called it Astana. So Astana word, if you will translate directly to English, it means capital. So capital city of capital is capital. So it's actually, if you will look to the roots, it doesn't make sense to call capital as a word capital. It's a little bit like, it doesn't match. So back in the day when I was in Kazakhstan, I heard that he chose this name of the capital to name it capital, just with the one reason that one day he will change it to more proper name under his name, which is last year happened. I heard about this story like maybe 10 years ago, and I was amazed last year it's really happened. So Nazarbayev promotes himself as the Russian Emperor Peter the Great, who actually built new capital of Russian Empire, St. Petersburg. So he moved from Moscow to like somewhere in Arkhangelsk, and he built new beautiful city, and he made it capital. And that city has the name of that Russian emperor, St. Petersburg, which is Peter. So Nazarbayev did the same thing. He created Astana, then he named it under his name Nur Sultan. So I think it was the main reason he made it plan like 10, 20 years before.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So Gani, just real quick, isn't it safe to say that there's a bit of like a cult of personality behind the former president, the person that you call your dictator?
The personality? Okay.
Yeah, like, you know, he wants to be like this kind of a godly figure, like a George Washington type figure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. He promotes himself, actually even Russian authoritarian leader, Putin. I think in 2015, I believe it was in Crimea, there was like forum, there was like conference, and Putin in that meeting, he said, some lady asked him a question, and he said, actually, Kazakhstan never existed as a country. The Kazakhstan state was created by Nazarbayev. He said on that statement, it's official. It was very big scandal after that. And Nazarbayev actually, he also promoted himself as the guy who created Kazakh state. And he said that there before no Kazakhstan at all. So he promotes himself as the first Kazakh leader. And in Kazakhstan, there are many streets changed after his name. There are even monuments built in Kazakhstan of Nazarbayev. That was, I think, like maybe 5 years ago. And there are many people, Kazakh people, who were shocked. The monuments actually in Kazakh culture, we build only if person dies. You can't build when you're alive. So even though he like broke cultural mind, and he built to himself a huge, beautiful monument. And the capital name changed under his name. A lot of main streets in many cities changed after his name. And airport also changed after his name. There is a very good university also called after his name, Nazarbayev University. So there are a lot of things connected with Nazarbayev, the dictator.
And just to comment, I kind of noticed that when I was there in Kazakhstan, but I also noticed that in the other Central Asian countries where there would be these gigantic like cutouts of the president just everywhere. I was working in the health field, so outside of the hospital, this huge, more larger than life poster-sized cutouts of the president in each of these countries. I noticed that.
Yeah, And there are some like Nursultan dictators people like in media, they try to give argument about, and they try to make like similarities between George Washington and Nazarbayev. They said like George Washington, he also was the leader, and Washington DC is under his name, so it's absolutely normal if Kazakhstan capital city will be under name of Nazarbayev. And there are other people who started questioning, well, if George Washington, or if we name like with kind of like repeating George Washington, so why the Nazarbayev doesn't create that economical power as US does, or doesn't create democracy as George Washington did? So there was many questions, unfavorable questions to Nazarbayev. So is there any question, or I can continue?
Please do so.
Mm-hmm. So
but now, independence, right?
Yeah. So let's say I will now tell about modern history of Kazakhstan. But modern history, I will start. Let's start from 1989. So when our leader Dinahmet Kunayev, as I said, well-known, very loved person in Kazakhstan by Kazakh people. In 1986, in the end of 1980s, he chose Nazarbayev as his successor. He saw a very young man, bright. He thought this guy is very good. He's a future leader, because Kunayev was very, very old. I would say maybe about around 75, 80 years old. So he chose young, ambitious Nazarbayev, Nursultan Nazarbayev, his full name. He made him as a leader of Kazakhstan, the leader of Kazakh Soviet Autonomy Republic. So Nazarbayev, when he became the leader, he actually starting a lot of backlashing against Kunayev. So the Soviets, the Gorbachev tried to actually kick out Kunayev from the power of Kazakhstan. So as you know, guys, in Soviet Russia, there was at that time came new leader Gorbachev. So that Gorbachev, new Russian leader, he tried to raise the old, powerful and popular leaders from in all republics, because he wanted to bring new team who will be supporting personally him. So Gorbachev, he didn't like Kunayev, because Kunayev was very popular, he was very powerful leader in Kazakhstan, and he could openly speak against Gorbachev. So Gorbachev, he started paying attention to Nazarbayev. Nazarbayev hiddenly, secretly started making deal with Gorbachev. And there are some, I was watching some interviews, there are some top Soviet government people, they say that Soviet leader Gorbachev, he actually promised to Nazarbayev to make him as a prime minister of Soviet country. So if he will underestimate and if he will help to Gorbachev to kick out Kunayev from the power. So Gorbachev and Nazarbayev alliance worked successfully. They actually kicked out the Kunayev from the power. Kunayev before believed to Nazarbayev, but he didn't give full power to Nazarbayev. He started giving, but then later he realized that Nazarbayev actually a dirty player, and he started taking back whole power, and he wanted to put another guy, but it was already too late. Nazarbayev and Gorbachev ally was very strong. They kicked out him. Then Nazarbayev put Kunayev to house arrest for next few years, and he cut all connection, all media to connect with Kunayev. So Nazarbayev created a beautiful myth that he was a successor, that Kunayev gave him all power. Kunayev saw him as a future leader and as a son, which indeed wasn't exactly like that. In 1986, there was a big Kazakh movement, youth of Kazakh students. After the Gorbachev kicked out Kunayev from the power, Kunayev actually ethnically Kazakh. So Soviet leader Gorbachev, he put as a leader of Kazakhstan ethnic Russian from Russia. His name is Kolbin for the next 2 years. So he kicked out the Khunaev from the power, and he put Russian from Russia as the leader of Kazakhstan. People started to get angry. Why we are ruled by ethnic Russian and from Russia? He's not even born in Kazakhstan. He doesn't know the specific of Kazakhstan. People, especially young students, they get mad, and they went to protest, peaceful protests in 1986, December 16 and December 17. On that 2 days, actually, it was very cold days. The students went to the protest. There was thousands of them. And then people started after that demanding even independence. So first they started demanding our own leader, Kazakh leader from Kazakhstan, or even not Kazakh, but someone from Kazakhstan. Then they demonstrated, they started bringing even more slogans at the independence to Kazakhstan. So Russian Soviet leadership, they brought a lot of military from Russia. Also in Russia, they had a specific military group which created by the orphanages. So orphanages which never had the full parents, full love. So they had the specific, the army military division, which was very cruel because they were from orphanages. They never felt loved. They were like psychologically, maybe they trained and were very cruel. So this kind of military brought specifically to Kazakhstan to kill all these young Kazakh students. So in that moment, actually a lot of Kazakh students were killed on that 2 nights. There was some very brutal fact that Russian military actually took a lot of, I'm so sorry, a little bit emotions, a lot of Kazakh student girls. They took them and they put them to ice because it was winter to make that Kazakh students, they will not give birth to Kazakhs. I'm so sorry. So this is how they did a lot of bad thing to that students. They killed a lot of Kazakh students, like Russian military. I'm sorry again. So, and in 1991, this day, December 16, Kazakhstan became independent. It's actually Kazakhstan was the last country in Soviet Union who left the Soviet Union. And Nursultan Nazarbayev, he actually had a lot of interviews, and he said the people who went to protest in that day, they were alcoholics, they were drug dealers. So he, alongside with all Soviet leadership, they said that all that people who went to the protest, they were bad guys, they were drug dealers, they were alcoholics, and Nazarbayev, he said a lot of bad things about them. But then later, when we become independent, this part of history, he started trying to hide them, and he created another myth that he actually was bringing that students, he was in front of them, he was like demanding independence, etc. That was absolutely myth. The other thing, there also, I was watching some interviews, some politicians from that era in Kazakhstan, they say that actually Nazarbayev secretly brought that young students to the protest. He played on their emotions with the one only reason, because in that moment, as I said, the Gorbachev made leader of Kazakhstan after Khunaev, ethnic Russian from Russia, Kolbin for next 2 years. So Kazakh people went very angry, they started protesting. So some historian, they said that Nazarbayev actually used the youth feelings, their patriotic feelings in his favor. So this is how he kicked out Kolbin, and this is how he became the officially leader of Soviet Communist Party in Kazakhstan. And when Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, actually Nazarbayev, there are a lot of video documentaries when Nazarbayev directly said that we against of collapse of Soviet Union. And that is the reason Kazakhstan left a last country from Soviet Union. And from that period of the time, Nazarbayev was ruling Kazakhstan for the next 30 years, from 1991 till last year, 2019. So in Kazakhstan, we had first in 1993 constitution, which was very good, very democratic. Then he started changing the constitution. He changed constitution in 1995. So he started making Kazakhstan more towards, before it was like parliamentary republic or mixed, then he made it mixed, then he made it presidential republic. Then there are some other videos, like documentary videos, where Nazarbayev, he clearly said, I think it was made in 1998, he said on that videos, well, I'm not gonna bring my relative to the power. My daughter or anyone else from my family will never be president after me. There will not be any monarchy. And he said that in 2000, according to the constitution, after my 2 terms, I will leave presidential seat. I think it was recorded in 1998, that video. And actually in 2000, when he had to leave according to constitution, he didn't leave the power. He changed the constitution. He called himself as the leader of the nation. Is actually stated on our new constitution, new version of constitution. And there is the article that the president cannot be more than 2 terms, but this doesn't work for the leader of the nation. So he became actually a president forever. During that time, he actually killed a lot of oppositional leaders, a lot of oppositions. Also in Kazakhstan, the Nazarbayev created a lot of fake oppositions. So they like dividing people, dividing oppositions, and there are like big mess. So I would say opposition in Kazakhstan very weak. Opposition in Kazakhstan, most of them are pro-government. So, and that is the reason maybe Kazakh people cannot unite. And in the other hand, Kazakh people actually, to be honest, afraid of their dictator. So in 2011, there was big demonstration in the western part of Kazakhstan, in Eurasian town. The people demanded for 5 months, they had a protest. Union workers, they demanded raising their salaries because they were working in a oil field, and in that oil, they actually a lot of money, a lot of foreigners who work there, they have salaries 10 times more than ethnic Kazakhs who work there. So people were demanding raising their salaries next 5 months, but the regime didn't listen to them. And in 2011, in December 16, on our Independent Day, they started shooting people who went to protest. So official statistics says it's only 15 people were killed. Non-official statistics says that over 100 people were shot by the order of Nazarbayev. This is what happened in 2011. It's called Eurasian massacre. The other thing I would say, as I said, that in Kazakhstan, huge corruption. I think we are like on 150 rank between like among 170 countries. We are a dictator country. There is no freedom, no speech. Even simple to have a protest, like I mean, in US we had so many protests at our organization. In Kazakhstan, it's not allowed to have a protest, just a peaceful protest for any reason. The new president, he says that he's favorable, he's very liberal. They actually give opportunity a few times to make a protest, but that was pro-government protest, and they made protests like in very rural areas. So they're doing a lot of things to do not allow to creation of real opposition or civil rights movement in Kazakhstan. So about the now I will tell you about Russian modern colonization of Kazakhstan and Chinese colonization of Kazakhstan. So as I said, in Kazakhstan we have all our informational media. It's absolutely 100% belong to Russia. There are all Russian media, all state Russian media played in Kazakhstan 24 hours, 7 days a week. Also, there is Russian media, kind of like Facebook. It calls Mail.ru and Kontakte, VK. It's also belong to Russian FSB, and it's like main media platform in Kazakhstan. Only last year, Facebook starting getting good like role in Kazakh society. But in Facebook, I would say majority of Kazakhs, they are like middle age or elderly people. By young people, before creation of Instagram, mainly they were in Russian Wiki social platform. So this, and in 2015, as I said before, in Kazakhstan we have 7 Russian military bases and polygons. One of them, I would say, Baikonur Cosmodrome, Baikonur City. It's actually Baikonur City. It's rented to Russia for the next 50 years. I think it will expire in 2050, if I'm not, if I didn't forget, if I'm correct, 2015 will expire that agreement. So basically, Kazakh government give up Baikonur City with Baikonur Cosmodrome to Russia. So in Baikonur City, even though it's Kazakh city, there are only Russian rules, only Russian law, and there is education system is belong to Russian educational system. And even when like young people go to school or university, they use a Russian national anthem, which is very, I would say, it shouldn't happen like this, but unfortunately it is. The other thing, in 2015, as I said, the Nazarbayev, he actually proposed even in end of 1990s, he proposed about the idea creation of Eurasian government, like Eurasian Union. They promoted a lot of ideas about it, and he also created Eurasian University, which I graduated in Kazakhstan. So the main idea was like we're all like Eurasian countries, we are like one country, one nation, like with Russia, Kazakhstan, we need to be united. Like this idea was promoted, I think, like for the next 10 years from the end of 1990s, which actually successfully worked. In 2015, Kazakhstan, Nazarbayev proposed Eurasian Economic Union. I don't know, it's really he proposed or Putin through his mouth proposed it. Anyway, it's created. First it was just trade union, then it became full transfer to Eurasian Economic Union. So what gives that union to Kazakhstan? What is the main goal of that union? In my opinion, its real main idea is recreation of Soviet Union. Putin has an imperialistic ambition. He wants to create Soviet Union, and as a fact, you know probably that he captured part of Georgia. You know, I think it was in 2010 or 2007 when Russian military actually invaded Georgia, sovereign country of Georgia, and they occupied southern of Ossetia and Abkhazia. They took part from Georgia. In 2014, you know, they captured the military, Russian military and different groups, they invaded to Crimea, and they took Crimea from Ukraine to Russia. Also, they did the same with Moldova. They also took some parts from Moldova country. And this what they're doing is recreation of Soviet Union or Russian Empire under Putin, Belarus, Kazakhstan, and Russia. So that Russian economic union, which Putin every time says it's only about economic, even though that even Russian economy actually in the world takes less than 2% of GDP. So Russian economy is actually very, very fragile. So from that economic union, Kazakhstan actually losing money. So I was reading, it's really hard to find statistic about economic union. I think maybe they just moderate, maybe erasing all statistics, but the very poor statistic which I found, actually 80% of benefits from that economic union gets Russia, and only 7% from that the union benefits gets only Kazakhstan. So I found some statistics since Kazakhstan joined that economic union. Kazakhstan actually losing 4% every year of its GDP. So basically, when we became part of that the Russian economic union, the borders actually started being open. So Russian goods and services freely come to Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan is actually economic. We almost don't produce anything. So we are very fragile. Our economy based on oil, natural resource, and gas, mineral resources. So all products from Russia come to Kazakhstan. Russian labor, the businesses come freely to Kazakhstan. But foreign products to come to Kazakhstan is really hard. Some of them is absolutely banned because the US and Europe made some sanction against of Russia, and Russia also made some sanction against of European and American products. So it's really hard. Foreign products, if they come to Kazakhstan, they double in their price, become very expensive. So nowadays we are consuming very poor quality of Russian products, Russian very outdated products or cars. And the other interesting thing which we noticed like Kazakh people, last year Kazakh cars on their plates, on their car plates, actually the style changed. So before we had a Kazakh style of the plates. I think it's like as in US it was same, like all Europe same. But last year the style of car plates in Kazakhstan became as a style of Russian. So in Russia, if you will look on the Google, there is on a car plate they put regions. So like as I know in Europe, in US, you never put like region, the specific numbers, small numbers. So they started putting the same thing, Russian style in Kazakhstan. So I would say that Kazakhstan is became again the part of Russia. So it's modern colonization of Putin's Russia. And I believe that because of the dictatorship, Nazarbayev dictatorship regime and authoritarian regime of Putin, I think the main reason why maybe Nazarbayev wants to make Kazakhstan part of Russia is to save his power. He probably afraid of US sanctions, different things. He may be afraid of revolutions. If in Kazakhstan revolution will happen, his family and he personally will be accountable and people will go crazy after him. I think he afraid of that. So the only thing who can save him is Putin and Russia. And as an example, I can give you in Kyrgyzstan, there happened two revolutions. I think it was in 2010 and 2015. And when revolution happened in Kyrgyzstan, which is neighbor of Kazakhstan, the Kyrgyz dictators, they ran away to Russia. One of them is a professor at Russian university, Kyrgyz former dictator. So I think Nazarbayev doesn't want, if it will happen, same thing. So he's making maybe with his own interest. And now I can tell you about the Chinese expansionism in Kazakhstan. Well, China, I tried to find the exact statistic. It was a little bit hard. Different sources different. The problem why sometimes even me or some other Kazakhs cannot find exact statistic, it's because our dictatorship regime, they just trying to raise all like dangerous numbers or agreements. We, for example, as a Kazakh citizens, we cannot find exactly information, Kazakh country, Kazakh government, which kind of agreements made with China or Russia, we cannot find. It's just secretly. We know they made it, but we don't know what was the agreement, what was the terms, condition, we don't know. Maybe he just sold us. So about Chinese expansionism in Kazakhstan, according to sources which I found, China invested in Kazakhstan about $50 billion through different economic programs. One of them calls Belt and Road Initiatives. So just a second. I opened the window, it's a little bit hot. So the why China is very interested in Kazakhstan. As I said at the beginning, Kazakhstan connects Europe and Asia. So 10% Kazakhstan located based in Europe and 90% in Central Asia. It's 9th largest country in the world. So for China, it's very useful for its economic purpose to make a road through Kazakhstan and connect to Eastern Europe. So to send I would say that Kazakhstan became a highway for Chinese goods from China to Europe. So China is basically recreating its Silk Road, like economic goods, for services, for ideas, the ancient road, which was in medieval history in Kazakhstan, in Central Asia, in Europe and China. So Chinese ambition in Kazakhstan are very, very strong. China also give 13 billion loans to Kazakhstan. Probably you all heard and aware about Chinese soft diplomacy or Chinese debt trap, which Kazakhstan, I think, falling very successfully. I could give you as an example that there is another dictatorship neighborhood country which calls Tajikistan. Tajik government, Tajik dictator, he took so much loans from China, he couldn't pay it back, and he just officially gave up some part of his land. And in that land, actually a lot of gold miners located. So you can guys check about it. I don't know if in English you can find information, but in Kazakh, in Russian information you can find this officially. The Tajik dictator gave up some land to China. So we, as a Kazakh citizen, as a Kazakh people, we're afraid that dictator Nazarbayev taking a lot of loans, which is not going to Kazakh economy. Obviously, it goes to his pocket, his ambitions. Later, after his death or after this death of this government dictatorship, for all these loans will be responsible Kazakh people. And we don't know, maybe Nazarbayev giving up our land. So everything is hidden, everything is secret. It's really, really hard to understand what is really going on. As I said about Belt and Road Initiative, and last year, Chinese government started influencing Kazakhstan not only through its economic, but also through its language and culture. Many Kazakhs and me personally were shocked that last year, some Kazakh schools, they started officially studying in Chinese language. In Astana, capital city, there are three Kazakh schools. They started studying in Chinese language. In Almaty city, one of the biggest city in Kazakhstan, I think there are like 2 or 3 schools also started studying. Also in Kazakhstan, there are 6 Chinese Confucius cultural centers. That the Confucius centers, you probably heard, that is created by Chinese Communist Party, and in some Western countries, the Chinese Confucius centers recognized as a spionaging agency and were shutting down. I think in Sweden happened like this. So in Kazakhstan we have 6 of them, and the last year our officials, Kazakh officials, they announced they will even create even more. So the other thing I would say that the Chinese business, Chinese workers go a lot to Kazakhstan. A lot of illegal Chinese ethnic immigrants came to Kazakhstan. There was even scandals that some Kazakh officials actually sold a lot of hundreds of Kazakh passports to ethnic Han Chinese, and they use it to come to Kazakhstan. And unfortunately, as I said, I'm not sure. Unfortunately, as I said, that Kazakhstan is a very corrupted country. The system is corrupt. The government is corrupted. So it's very good and favorable for China to colonize Kazakhstan, not through only economic, but also through culture, through language, and through men, through ethnic Han Chinese. So population of Kazakhstan is very small. It's about 18 to 19 million. In one only city in Kazakhstan, in China, Shanghai, I think it's over 22 million population. So I was getting some data that there are some ethnic Chinese who came to Kazakhstan for business purpose. They already started married to ethnic Kazakhs, in Kazakhstan to Kazakh citizens. They pay them money and they're getting Kazakh citizenship. Even they have children. So Kazakh people actually went to protest against China many times, but government doing everything to not let it happen. So in 2016, actually, Kazakh dictator Nazarbayev, he proposed a new law. It calls the land law. According to that new articles on that law, Kazakhstan will have the government giving opportunity to sell Kazakh land to foreigners. So a lot of people, a lot of Kazakhs were very angry. They went against of it. In 2016, there was big protest in Kazakhstan. So the main idea of that was to give a legal opportunity to sell to ethnic Chinese, Han Chinese, and to Chinese businesses Kazakh land, which didn't happen because Nazarbayev said that it will holding. So he didn't decline it, he didn't approve it, but it's on moratorium. The other thing I would say that, as I said, some schools starting studying in Kazakh language and in Chinese language. And actually this year we had a parliamentary election. And there in election, some deputy became people who work to Chinese government. Some, I would say one as an example, one guy who actually ethnic Kazakh, but he chief of Chinese Confucius Center. He's very favorable to China. He also became deputy, and there are also some ethnic Kazakhs who became deputy, but their husband or wife ethnic Chinese. So we see here that China is just getting inside of Kazakhstan from different side, from the power to the from everywhere. And I think China is trying to colonize Kazakhstan, make it part of China. And the other thing I would say, as I said, there are a lot of illegal immigrants, Chinese, keep coming to Kazakhstan, crossing freely borders, and population of Chinese, ethnic Chinese is growing in Kazakhstan. And it's very, very dangerous because we have dictatorship regime. Kazakhstan is very fragile. And I'm afraid that in future, we will move from Russian colony modern to Chinese colony. So this is what's happening right now in Kazakhstan. And so if you have guys any questions, you may ask me.
I guess I'll ask the first question. So Kazakhstan has existential threats facing to the north is the Russian colonization, and to the east, China. Which do you find to be more of a threat? I'm sure both threats are very real and it's there, but which would be more, I guess, detrimental to the future of Kazakhstan?
I would say it would be Russia. So as I said, nowadays we are part of union, economic. I think from economic we will move towards some more politics. They were proposing actually to create a over government parliament. Russia proposed that to what these three countries, Kazakhstan, Russia, and Belarus, and Russia were proposing to create a over government's parliament, which will be controlling these three countries. So that is actually very scary. And the headquarters of this union is in Moscow, in Russia. And also I was reading this year, they want to create the main military of all these countries, military, commanding chief, commanding center in Moscow. So our military also will belong to Russia. As you know, Russia created not only economic union, but also there is called ODKB, which is military union with Russia. So Kazakhstan part of it.
I guess we'll just follow up. One thing I find counterintuitive is you had mentioned that a lot of the economic output in Kazakhstan is based on oil and gas, and same with Russia. And right now there is an oil crisis in terms of the price plunging. So if the future is on oil and gas, I mean, how much will Kazakhstan benefit? Because on one hand, you have the plunging of the oil prices, but on the other hand, you have China investing to a tune of $50 billion. So it sounds like maybe Kazakhstan is more to benefit from China economically, but then you have to be careful what you wish for, because if its long tentacles reach into Kazakhstan, that could certainly be a threat, I would think.
Yeah, so I would say that currently different statistics say differently. So in Kazakhstan, it's oil and gas production actually bought by Chinese, and from 40 to 70% of all Kazakhstan oil gas production industry is actually officially belong to China. China, it's according to official statistic, actually China is a fourth largest investor in Kazakhstan. So first is Netherlands, second I believe is US, third I don't remember, I think it's France, and then is fourth is China. But the first is, as I said, it's Netherlands. So Netherlands actually has a lot of offshores. So I was getting some information that China actually investing to Kazakhstan through Netherlands. So probably the China is the largest investor in Kazakhstan. So our oil, gas, different mineral resource actually already officially belong to China. It's sold, absolutely, it's official information. Also, the China said last year that they're gonna move from China to Kazakhstan 55 Chinese factories. So people went to protest last year against all that. Also in Kazakhstan, our current, we call him puppet president of Kassym-Jomart Tokayev, he actually studied in China and he speaks freely Chinese. He's fluent in Chinese language. And also he's we have let's say like in US you have CIA, in Kazakhstan we have KNB, Committee of National Security, kind of like Russian KGB. So the chief of that KNB is ethnic Uyghur. He actually was official, there is official information, he was a Russian spy in China, and he studied in Wuhan city in China. His name is Karim Asimov. So he's controlling KNB of Kazakhstan. So we see Chinese influence a lot in from everywhere. And also last year, the Chinese smart CCTV cameras started coming to Kazakhstan. Probably you have heard about HIK company. It's actually developed its smart cameras system in East Turkestan, well known as the Xinjiang. Xinjiang is actually given a Chinese name. Xinjiang means new border, new territory. It's occupied in 1949. It's belonged to all Turkic people. So in East Turkestan, this Chinese company calls HIK companies. They develop smart CCTV cameras which can recognize your face, everything, your movement. They put to data. So they developed there, and our current, the president, he brought that company to Kazakhstan. So in capital of Astana, capital city of Astana, we have nowadays over 2,000 smart Chinese CCTV cameras. And also in Almaty, they put it everywhere. So also last year, the Chinese government, they donated to Kazakhstan a supercomputer. And from that Chinese supercomputer will go very important government data. And I'm sure that Chinese will be using it. It's like Trojan horse. So yeah, this is what I would say.
Okay, anyone else? Questions to Ghani? Mara? Yeah.
So I've heard that China has done a similar thing in Mongolia regarding the language, that they're trying to put the Chinese language in Mongolian schools and eradicate or not teach the Mongolian language, but Mongolian people protest it. And you had mentioned that there are schools in Kazakhstan now where they teach Chinese. So I wanted to ask you, do you feel like China might take a similar approach and try to only have people learn Chinese? And do you think Kazakh people would try to protest that?
So thanks so much for the question. I would say I can give little bit information about China, because in Europe we are doing a lot of protests with different groups as well as Mongolians. So actually, as I said before about East Turkestan, it was independent country and was occupied by Chinese Communist Mao Zedong in 1949. Tibet was occupied in 1950. I think in 1950 Southern Mongolia also as well was occupied, but partially it was belonged it before, so partially it was conquered by the communists in 1950. So in East Turkestan is actually the homeland of all Turkic people. Turkic, I mean, is Kazakhs, it's Uyghurs, it's Kyrgyz, Uzbeks, they're all basically in the past we were one nation, then we just were divided. So that East Turkestan, as I said, is captured by the Chinese communists. And nowadays there is, according to UN, according to different human rights organizations, there are in concentration camps, modern concentration camps and prison in East Turkestan detained from 1 to 3 million of people, ethnic Kazakhs, ethnic Uyghurs. So there are some statistics, they say about over 3 million of Uyghurs, Kyrgyz, Uzbek, Tajiks in that concentration camps, and 500,000 of ethnic Kazakhs also detained in that concentration camps. So in East Turkestan, there are, according to official Chinese statistics, which we believe make it lower, says that there live only 12 million of ethnic Uyghurs and only 3 million of ethnic Kazakhs. According to our statistics, there live about 25 to 30 million of ethnic Uyghurs and about 5 million ethnic Kazakhs. So in East Turkestan, northern part is actually historically every time belonged to Kazakhstan. Even now it calls Ile Kazakh Autonomous Region, and southern part is belong to Uyghurs. Sometimes they call it Uyghurstan. Right now they eradicate. The Chinese government, they shut down all ethnic based schools in East Turkestan back in 2016, 2017. Here in US, as I said, we're doing a lot of protests, and here you might heard about the ethnic Kazakh. Her name is Saragul Salpai. She actually a live witness and camp survivor from East Turkestan. She illegally crossed Chinese-Kazakh borders. She fled to Kazakhstan. Then Kazakh government, they put her to prison and they wanted her deport back to China. Well, she's ethnic Kazakh, she will be deported, obviously she would be killed. So she actually revealed what is happening in that concentration camps. So she was in that concentration camps. In one of them, she said there was like 2,500 mainly ethnic Kazakhs in that concentration camp. And she actually, first she was sent there as a Chinese Kazakh teacher. So she was teaching Chinese language to ethnic Kazakhs in that concentration camp. She said there the ethnic Kazakhs, young ladies, young Kazakh or Kazakh women, they were daily raped by a Chinese officer, daily. So she said that every day they would praise to Chinese Communist Party, they would learn Chinese songs, praising long life to Xi Jinping, etc. And the Chinese officer, they would test ethnic Kazakhs from that concentration camp. So they would bring, like, let's say 200 ethnic Kazakhs to morning. They place them on a center. They would take from them few ethnic Kazakh girls and they will rape them in front of all 200 ethnic Kazakhs. And if you see that, and if you will move your eyes, you start crying, or you will get angry on your face, the Chinese officer, they will say, you still didn't become Chinese. You still don't believe to our communism ideology, and they would punish those Kazakhs who move their eyes or cry or do any other thing. So there are actually nowadays, as we know, officially in Kazakhstan, 5 ethnic Kazakhs who flew, crossed illegally Kazakh-Chinese border, and they are camp survivor. And there are a lot of Kazakhs who actually lost their families. There are a lot of statistics that some ethnic Kazakhs, they sent to prison, even they are innocent, just because they are Kazakhs, because they are Muslims, for 10 years, 15 years, 25 years. Also, in that concentration camps, they do sterilization. So they do sterilization. Many Kazakh women, the camp survivor Sayrgus Albayshi said that many Kazakh women, after those sterilization, after pills, they lost their ability to menstruation period, and men lost ability to give birth. Also, they choose the good, who has good health. They choose like ethnic Kazakhs or Uyghurs, and they using their organs for organ harvesting, and they sell that organs as a halal organs. Halal means something like acceptable in Islam to rich Saudi sheikh who frequently goes to China and buys the halal organs from ethnic Kazakhs or Uyghurs because they're Muslims. This is.
Okay, anyone else?
Wow,
Okay.
I just had no idea, and I'm so in shock right now by what you told me. And this is happening now, and no one is doing anything.
Well, unfortunately, China has a big influence with its money, with its power. So, yeah, unfortunately, many people cannot country. Even though last year, I remember when 22 European and America, I think it's Japan, Korea, they actually made a statement accusing China for human rights abuse. And China actually was supported on that time with other 34 countries alongside with Russia, and a lot of Arab countries, Muslim countries actually supported China. Well, it's all about money, economics, about self-interest. That's it.
Yeah, and just to underscore that point, we had a discussion at the United Nations about 2 weeks ago, and two of the countries that neighbors Kazakhstan, that being Russia and China, they're both on the Permanent Security Council. So even if you wanted to do something like impose sanctions, it's not going to go anywhere because they're going to veto.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know, number one, there's kind of a almost a blackout of information and news reporting regarding these abuses. And number two, even if someone wanted to enforce any economic sanctions, because of their veto power, it goes nowhere. So this is the system that we have. Okay, we have a few minutes left. Does anyone else want to ask a question to Ghani? No? Okay.
I don't have a question, but I just wanted to say that because I have traveled to that region in the past and liked it so much, it's just it's such a treat to have this opportunity to hear about the country and the history from you, Ghani. Thank you so much for sharing these stories that are obviously also very personal. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Pico. Thank you so much.
Before we sign up, I do want to bring up a few questions. One is kind of like an optimistic note, because I know there's a lot of external threats that Kazakhstan faces. But when we look at it more kind of optimistically, you can't deny that economic growth has been pretty remarkable in Kazakhstan, right? I mean, you see this rapid modernization in a lot of these cities. Again, I don't know if that's all that necessarily good, but at least, I guess, standard of living has been increasing, right? What do you think about that?
About economic growth, it's actually based only on prices of oil and gas and mineral resources. The other thing I would say that Kazakhstan actually produces uranium, which is very rare, very expensive, and it's ranked #1 in the world. I think it's produced like over 5,000 tons of uranium. So Kazakhstan actually, as you know, according to statistics, it's among 10 richest country in the world by mineral resources. So Kazakhstan economy based only on natural resources. That's it. We in general, we don't produce anything. So Nazarbayev actually, his economical miracle based on that. And Kazakhstan modernization is actually, I would say, it's not that strong as many people would think, because he put like about maybe 70-60 billion to build a new city, Astana, which is really beautiful. A lot of money spent there. And when foreigners or somebody see Astana, they think, "Well, Kazakhstan like this." But rest of Kazakhstan actually very poor. I think there are like, according to statistics, over 2 million of Kazakhs actually live under a line of poverty. There are like, I think there are 40% of like the villages that don't have connection to the water. So there are actually a lot of like economic not good thing in Kazakhstan. It's just we have beautiful face is Astana. The rest of Kazakhstan is very poor, unfortunately.
So it sounds like what I'm hearing is there's a high degree of economic inequality, and the recent modernization only benefited just a select few, especially those who have political power and those who have political connections, kind of like almost like an oligarchy.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
According, for example, Forbes, the daughter of President dictator Nazarbayev, Darika Nazarbayeva, she has officially $500 million. And I was reading that I think British some media, they said that Nazarbayev in I think in 2000 he had $1 billion of money according to statistics.
And I recall Kazakhstan was making a bid for the Winter Olympics in year 2022. And I believe they were runner-up, but then they lost, unfortunately, to Beijing. Is that correct?
Yes, they lost. The government spent a lot of money, millions, buying everyone they could, doing a lot of stuff. So Nazarbayev doing this kind of thing to only with one main idea, to praise him. He also tried to get a Nobel Prize. He actually trying. So the thing why Nazarbayev, through his like people trying to get Nobel Prize, as a person of millennia who actually, Kazakhstan actually had atomic bombs. We had atomic bombs, atomic weapons. Kazakhstan, when Soviet Union collapsed, Kazakhstan was 4th country in the world, but the amount of very like dangerous like atomic weapons. But Kazakhstan gave up everything to Russia. I was reading somewhere that US actually pushed Nazarbayev to do that. So he gave it back to Russia, sent back, and Nazarbayev trying to use it as he brought the like peace and first country who like with its will announced free of atomic weapons.
So right now we're in the midst of an election here in the US. So we tend to look at everything through the prism of presidential politics. For people in Kazakhstan, do you think the outcome of this election matters that much? And if so, would they rather see a continuation of the Trump administration or Biden administration?
To be honest, it's really hard to say how it will work. I'm not sure. I would say in general that US, I don't know why, but is very passive in Kazakhstan, in Central Asia, even though Kazakhstan is playing very geopolitical, very main role, I would say, in Central Asia, in Eastern Europe. It's between Russia and China, and China's economic, one of the most route actually goes through Kazakhstan to Europe. I don't know why Russia or US doesn't play well, doesn't play at all in Kazakhstan. So in this case, whoever will become president in US, I think it doesn't affect much in Kazakhstan unless if new or existing president will not take a big movement and actions in Kazakhstan.
So I guess in summary, why don't we leave it at this? This event was titled Kazakhstan Past, Present, and Future. And I think the past, as you had eloquently summarized, it's all about, despite its rich history in the last 200 years, it's all about survival, because you had Russia trying to basically eradicate Kazakhstan, right? Trying to exert its influence, trying to take away the language, So, and then present, we're talking about how the country is modernized, but then because of corruption and, like you said, the dictator not serving the country well, seems like the country is very fragile. So how do you see Kazakhstan's future? Do you see it aligning more with like the Chinese style kind of a mercantile communism, or do you see aligning itself more kind of Russian style society, or something in between?
Yeah, I just got like these questions about future. What do you think about future of Kazakhstan? It's really hard to say, but I probably would be maybe pessimist about that. So I think like in next 10 years for Kazakhstan will be most dangerous is Russia. So I think we will eventually become part of Russia, one more region of Russia for probably next 10 years. If Russia itself will not collapse, either through democratic movements or any civil maybe wars, I don't know, because some maybe republic will start announcing its independence. If something will not happen, then I think Kazakhstan will become part of Russia fully. The Chinese economy, I think China will play main role in a long term. So I would say in next 10 years, very dangerous and probably will become part of Russia. But in next 30 to 50 years, we probably will become part of China. So Russia's economy will collapse. I think Russia will have a big in future problems. According to the past history of Russia, it's every time had civil wars, it's every time had some problems with the governments, etc. And I believe it will happen eventually in Russia again. And Russia economy is very weak, like Soviet Union. I think it will collapse. Then while Russia is capturing Kazakhstan, China will put roots, and that roots will give fruits like in next 30 to 50 years. There is a small percentage, small chance that the young Kazakh people, patriots, maybe nationalists, Democrats, they will take power in Kazakhstan. Or only in that case, I think if youth will come and if they will really make reforms, changes, in this case, I believe there will be a very small chance that we will be independent, sovereign, and democratic country. But if I'm being realistic right now, there is almost no chance that we will survive.
Well, the work that you do, and based on our conversations prior to this event, a lot of your work is the independence of Kazakhstan. So other than just political reforms to make the country more of a representative style democracy, what can Kazakhstan do to have real sense of independence?
The real sense of independence, I would say first is language. In Kazakhstan, there are like official language is Kazakhstan, and the other language is Russian language. If somehow we can eradicate Russian language, I'm not saying like using force and etc. If somehow we can make like Kazakh people and Kazakhstani people speaking in daily life in Kazakh language, if they will start speaking in Kazakh language, if they will start thinking in Kazakh language, and if we can create independent media informational area from Russia and China, so this thing I think will bring to Kazakhstan real independence. I think the first will be the language. If we can go away from Russia, the only way how we can go is through language. For example, if Kazakh person will not understand Russian person, we cannot consume their information. We cannot consume. We cannot talk to them. We cannot exchange with them with ideas, information, etc. If we speak only Kazakh, not Russian, so in this case, I think we can become really independent. So language, I would say.
Anyone else?
Yes,
Yeah,
I just want to say that I was very moved in the beginning when I saw you stand up. And I was just curious, what is your favorite folk music for Kazakh people? or if you have one.
Folk music, wow, there's so many folk musics. Maybe probably Adai. There is a name called Adai. It's actually music played by national instrument Dombra. There is a beautiful myth, I don't know, maybe it's myth, maybe it's fact, that there are one time the great Genghis Khan's son, Josha, he actually was hunting to the deers in Kazakhstan, and he actually was killed by that deers. There were so many, they just smashed him, they killed him. So that son, because he was killed, Genghis Khan was waiting his son. Where is my son? He was so angry. He started searching his son. And he said, if somebody will tell me anything bad, any bad black news about my son, I will put a melted metal to his throat. So everyone was afraid to tell the sad truth about death of his son. So one musician, he came to Genghis Khan. Somebody says it was different king, or anyway, it was in Kazakhstan. So he started playing in the national instrument Dombra. It actually didn't have hole, but nowadays it has hole, that instrument. So he played on his music, and through his music, he said to Genghis Khan about this sad truth that his son was killed by the deers, steppe deers. So Genghis Khan was so angry, and he said, put melted metal to the throat of this musician. But that musician, he said, no, great Genghis Khan, I didn't tell you anything. The musical instrument told you. So then he put it, melted the metal to this instrument, and it created hole. So since that time, our instrument has a hole on that place.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else for Ghani before we sign off?
Oh, I have a random question. So did you hear about the Kazakh singer Dimash Kudaibergen? He had his music video was the first Kazakh music video to be on MTV USA.
Wow.
And I wanted to ask if you heard about it and how you felt about it.
Yeah, he's actually a very famous guy. We support him very much. He's a very talented guy. His voice, I don't know, it's very beautiful. I never heard. Here's some good thing and some maybe not that good thing. First of all, he's very talented. He's really patriotic. He loves Kazakhstan. He speaks every time in Kazakh language. I would say not good thing. He actually, in Kazakhstan, when he was singing song, the Kazakh, like Estrada, the Kazakh, like famous singers, they said, oh, you don't have normal voice as men should have. So Kazakh people, most of them very conservative. So they didn't really give him valuable the price to him, to his talent. Then he went to China, and in China he participated at like competition of singers, and he got second place in China. That became very, very big news in Kazakhstan. Then in Kazakhstan, people started praising to Dimash. So actually, the Chinese government, China, support him a lot. He actually this year created a musical video where he's showing that Chinese government, and Xi Jinping was on that video, when how Chinese government trying to help to many nations to fight with coronavirus. They giving like a lot of like medical stuff for free. All video was about it. And we were so mad, and me, our organization, many other people started posting that why you are doing such kind of thing while you're like people dying in concentration camps. That's not nice. And after like 1 week, he suddenly changed that music video from like Chinese style to Kazakh style. There is no more any Xi Jinping show or China. So he, I think, very much is influenced by China. I wouldn't say that he worked to the interest of China because he's very young. He maybe don't understand that actually with his action, he helping to CCP. But as a talent, he's very talented and he's very patriotic as a guy.
Okay.
I didn't know he. I'm so sorry, Thomas.
No, go ahead, please.
I was just saying, I didn't know that he, Kazakhstan didn't support him at first, because whenever I see people from all different countries and all different ages hear him sing, they say how stupendous his voice is and how unreal it is, like that he might be like the best singer alive. So that's so weird to me that Kazakhstan didn't support him at first.
Yeah, well,
Wow.
it's our mentality, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Thank you for sharing.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for being so long hours with me.
Okay. Anyone else for Ghani? Any questions, comments? Okay, I guess we'll wrap it up.
Wait, can I ask one more?
Sure, of course.
So sorry, Thomas.
No,
So I really I love this presentation because it's one of my dreams to go to Kazakhstan, and I really want to make Kazakh friends so I can learn more about the culture. And I wonder, is there a meetup group or somewhere where I could meet more Kazakh people to learn about your beautiful and interesting culture?
Yeah, on Facebook you can find, I think, Kazakh American Association. You can find there on Facebook. And I'm actually on Facebook and Instagram. My name is Gani Stambek. I don't know if it's shown on the, I can just write, so I can send you the link about the old communities here in New York. And yeah, I'm on Facebook and Instagram. So I just texted on a chat. You can see there.
Okay, so I could search you and Kazakh American.
Yep, Kazakh American Association. Yep.
Okay, wait, let me copy your. Thank you so much. Wow, I mean, this is such an amazing presentation. I was so excited for this today.
Thanks so much, guys, for listening.
Thank you, Ghani. Thank you, everyone. And just to wrap it up, the work that Ghani does, it's through an organization called freekazaks.org. I will post a link. From there, you could see all the events and their efforts, as well as more information about Ghani. So I'll post that on the meetup page. Thank you once again, Ghani. That was a wonderful and informative presentation.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it. Goodbye, guys.
Bye.